Yes, greetings. Welcome to the Captain's Cast. I am your host, Captain Garrett. This is the Swords and Starships Channel, your prime location for entertainment news, commentary, and trenchant, biting critique. Hi, how are you? Welcome aboard. This is the Captain's Cast, where permission to come aboard is never required, but always granted. And I would say, let not your heart be troubled, but your captain comes to you with a heavy heart. I just finished watching parts of Strange New Worlds, the musical episode entitled something Rhapsody. What was it? Nah, what the devil was it called? Anyway, how can I even describe my horror shock? A kind of resignation is the only way I could describe my feeling while watching this. It's it's one thing. It's one thing to like comment on all these shows that are just tearing apart our characters, but man, this was supposed to be the good one, by the way. This was supposed to be the good one from Kurtzman Trek, and it is. There's just a level of maliciousness to it that I can't quite. They've outdone themselves. But I've also watched. Hail, Wrangler! Wrangler's in the chat. Welcome aboard, sir. And we have much to discuss. It's just a sip of coffee. The captain is easing his way into it today. Coffee brand coffee, if you can believe it. Hat tip, the quartering. Makes a good cup of joe. So we have much to discuss. We're going to talk about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Mutant Mayhem. Is this a good movie? Rotten Tomatoes seems to think it is. Where is it sitting? It is sitting right now. Looking for the... Come on now. Where is it? Continue without disabling. Ad blocker. But the new Rotten Tomatoes site is horrible. They used to just have the top movies at the top. Now they just have the top popular streaming. Teenage. Wow. They're going to make me search for it. Okay. Teenage Mutant. That should be enough. 96%. I thought it was ridiculously high. 96% Rotten Tomatoes critic score. 93% audience score. I'm not going to say I think it was terrible, but that is high. I feel like there's some positive review bombing going on. So we will talk about my thoughts on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And we have some other great news stories here. Barbie hits 1 billion. A Billy. Barbie is officially a Billy killer. And I have some thoughts on this as well. But I will say, I feel this is the worst thing that could have happened to Disney, because Haunted Mansion is now a total failure, which, oh, gee, there's a surprise. Did you see the trailer? It's one thing when you see a trailer that's, you can read the tea leaves and just say, this, I don't know if this is going the right direction. I watched something like a trailer for like What We Do in the Shadows or The Addams Family or Haunted Mansion, and it's uncomfortable just to watch the trailer. It's so fake, it's so phony, it's so boring. I don't like it's just it is some idiot Hollywood, hack. It's just their coked up, addled fever dream. And I'm just like, who wants this? Who needs this? Who wanted to see the Haunted Mansion ride converted into a movie? But I feel that this puts Disney in a pickle, because you would think 7 or 8 multi-million-dollar flops would be enough to teach them that if you get woke, you go broke. But what I think it's actually going to teach them, because Barbie just came out, is I shared with you. I shared with you the article that showed they have learned nothing from their failures. And the one thing, according to a rumor from a whistleblower, the one thing you cannot do at Disney right now is say that wokeness is the reason any of their films are failing. If you do that, you are fired. You're out of there. So they're incapable of seeing it. It's their blind spot. But now they have a movie, Barbie, that is just packed with a bunch of depressing intersectional feminist nonsense that has just become a Billy killer. And now Disney's going to, see, there you go. There you go. We just have to do that. So we'll talk about that. And yeah, why did I do this to myself? I have not watched beyond the first episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds because it's the same thing with Star Wars, Disney Star Wars. You've seen enough of it. I don't need to see any more of it. Like, I know exactly what it's going to be every single time now. And if it hadn't been for Robert Meyer Burnett on the Critical Drinker stream, I certainly would not have watched Picard season 3. There was literally nothing could convince me to watch it until somehow Robert Meyer Burnett, through about 8 minutes of persuasion, convinced me to give it a shot. And so I did. Wrangler says, now Nintendo can do a movie about Luigi's Mansion and embarrass the hell out of Disney. That is a good point, sir. That is a good point and well made. Because you're right. Nintendo would have their heart in the right place if they did a Luigi's Mansion. And, that also highlights what I think Disney does not like. At what point do you think Disney's going to just admit they aren't filmmakers? Like, when are they going to realize you're not very good at this? Like, you're not good at making TV. You're not good at making film. You're not good at marketing any of it. It turns out you're not very good at making Star Wars theme parks. Like, what are you going to, at least at this point, at least current Disney, you seem to have lost the ability to make any of this crap. And one of the number one things they can't seem to do is figure out tone. Because what I would say about Barbie, Barbie succeeds where Disney fails, I think, because Barbie actually had some style and it had some tone that was relatively consistent throughout the film, even as nightmarish as that movie was at times. I wouldn't say nightmarish. It wasn't as bad as Quantumania, but it was a bunch of junk in a blender is that movie. And it could have been like Elf, but it was just inconsistent. But it had a tone and a style. It had a mise en scène that worked all the way through. And Disney films do not have this. I see the Haunted Mansion. I see the Haunted Mansion trailer, and I just think, how do I even describe this? It's worse than a made-for-TV movie. It's like that in color Addams Family show that I forget who made that, but that came out recently on FX, and it just looked. You know what it reminded me of a little bit is like the old school Batman show, like with Adam West. It reminded me kind of that, where it's basically like a circus funhouse version of Batman. It's like, that's what Haunted Mansion feels like to me. It actually looks like you're on a ride in the movie, but not in a good way. Because like the whole point of being on a ride is you want it to look as real as possible. It's like, if the ride is meant to imitate how you're supposed to feel if you're in the movie, then it makes no sense to make a movie that imitates how you feel on the ride, because that is now 2 degrees of separation from reality. And I think that's kind of what it is. It's like the lighting looks fake. Everything is a kind of uncanny valley. In fact, grab me. I'll just, you know what? Let's just go for it. The Haunted Mansion trailer. Let's just take a look at it, shall we? These some of the captain's favorite things is what we're gonna and by favorite, I mean quite the opposite. In fact, I feel like there we go. Let's set the mood a little here. You know, Captain needs some more vitamin D. I'm looking a little more pasty Irish than usual these days. Anyhow, there we go. This is all you ever need to see. Because I'm trying to articulate this.
Wait! I should warn you before you step inside the house. This could change the course of your entire life.
I'm not afraid of a couple ghosts.
You say that now.
See, there's nothing about this. This is so fake. It's so phony. It's like literally, it's as if what they did is they said, let's go to Halloween nights at Universal Studios, where it's a bunch of actors and you're walking through like this fake haunted house. Let's recreate that. Not let's recreate like a House of Horrors. Let's just recreate a ride about a House of Horrors as a movie. It's all CGI. It's all fake, phony. Everything is telegraphed. You know exactly what's going to happen. The music is way ahead of it.
Lurks around every corner.
Like what is that? Just over the top acting.
God, give us a break. There's so many bad people in the world. Haunt them.
Amen.
Won't take itself seriously. There's Owen Wilson. Bunch of meta humor.
Whether we like it or not. Or else we're stuck here for eternity. If this comes down to an exorcism, we're in big trouble.
Fake, bloated, CGI garbage, all of it. It's just... I don't know if they'll copyright me or anything, so I'm just gonna leave it there. But like, yeah, it's just garbage. It's visual garbage is all that is. There's nothing, there's not one compelling character in that. Is there one character you can actually identify with that's on some kind of a journey? Is there one like scintilla of menace or fear in that trailer? Nothing. Not one thing. Is there one ghost that gives you one sense of like reality about it? The whole thing is like it's like a bad murder mystery dinner theater. You know, like where you go to a dinner and you have to solve the murder mystery. It's like that in a movie. All right, I fairly exhausted that point. So anyhow, hey, before we get started on the stories of the day, Fu Man Blue is in the chat. Hail to the chat. And permission to come aboard granted, sir. You're on the captain's cast. Permission to come aboard never required, always granted. And please do like and subscribe. We are live on the Swords and Starships channel on YouTube, Rumble, and Twitter X. We're doing an X video on Twitter. I mean a Twitter video on X. You know, Elon Musk, by the way, tweeted out. I guess that's what we say. Said, "What do you guys think of this? Give me some feedback." And my sincere comment to Mr. Musk was like, "What the hell do we call tweets now? Like, what do you actually? Is it a tweet? What do you call anything? Like, look, I'm not gonna, be grabbing my pitchfork over changing the name of Twitter. I quite enjoy the fact that the bird is dead. But that being said, like, it was a brand that had name recognition. It's become literally, you could look it up in the dictionary. The word tweet has its own entry in the dictionary now. It's like, that's a lot to give up with nothing in its place. I'm just saying. All right. So anyway, your captain super chatted on Friday Night Tights. So let's catch up on the Captain Super Chat on Friday Night Tights, shall we? There we go. This might be a new thing I do. I'm working on some like segments. I'm thinking there's like going to be regular segments on this show now. And one of them is going to be, what happened last Friday night? That's what we'll call this one. What happened last Friday night? And for those who don't know, because I know there's a couple following all the things I follow, this is Friday Night Tights, the largest nerd live stream that matters to me anyway, on the internet, over there on Nerdrotic, hat tip Nerdrotic.
Annuity, which I like. Captain,
yes, very well done.
Especially with that and BPRD. Yeah. Captain Garrett, 2 parts for $52. Very specific. Thank you very much.
So I donate on Streamlabs, and I tried to donate $51.99, $199, and for whatever reason, it just goes through as $52. So I'm gonna have to. I'm just gonna have to put $199 in my chat next time.
New 52. On the last Captain's Cast, a live stream, my channel, Swords and Starships, I posted this theory. After Barbie, Secret Invasion, and all the trash I've seen, women are the new noble savage of our society. Powerful, idealized unicorns, oppressed and misunderstood. Postscript, great work on Barbie review and fitness looking svelte as fuck. What a proper British gentleman you are, simp.
That's right, Az.
You're enough as well.
Thanks, Az. I appreciate
Chris,
that.
you put on more clothes?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. So your captain is famous. Absolutely rock star famous now. Anyway, no, I just thought I'd share that with you. Gary called me a simp. I own it. I totally simped for Az 100%. Look, he gets a lot of shit. I was like, you know what? He's putting in the work in the gym. The captain will grant him his British patronage. Just this once. You can't let him get too big of a head. Fu Man Blue says, saw your super chat. Wrangler says, I can do odd amounts. Wrangler puts in 420. Yes. All right, Wrangler with a super chat, 420. That's your captain. It does not partake, but I have lots of friends that would very much appreciate that number. So thank you, Wrangler, 420. I salute you, sir. Very much appreciate that super chat, that very generous super chat. So anyway, that was last Friday night. So why don't we jump into what should we talk about first? There's so very much. I'm going to pull up some stories for you because the box office is just set ablaze with interesting happenings. So first, let's check out the Barbie box office. So we're going to do a new share. Present. Try this headline from Deadline. $2023 domestic box office surges past $6 billion this weekend due to Barbenheimer, Turtles, and Meg 2. Now, I was going to watch Meg 2 for you, but I just got behind. And honestly, I heard some things about it. I lost interest. That seems like the dumbest movie ever, but I will watch it for you. I just didn't get to it this week. So anyway, this is a really interesting turn of events because we've had The Flash was a total bomb. We had Dial of Destiny was a total bomb. We had Little Mermaid was a total bomb. And then we get one that's sort of a bomb, but in a different way. And we get 4 blockbuster movies right in a row. Now this is fascinating to me. This is fascinating. Wrangler says, no shame in not partaking. On the other hand, I don't drink. Yes. Well, your captain doesn't drink anymore either. So, but let me tell you something. When I watch Strange New Worlds, I start to reconsider that decision. Yes, I do. This from Deadline. Do I have the... Let me see here. Oh, here we go. Yes. Barbie remains box office queen bee with $53 million in a weekend. Let's see. Barbie is roughly $40 million shy from passing the $500 million mark at the domestic box office. Her gross is set to stand at $459 million domestic. So Barbie's going to hit $1 billion as of today, as of this article's printing, which was this morning. That fierce battle for second place is between the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Oppenheimer, and the Meg 2. Second place winner is the Meg 2 with $30 million. And Oppenheimer's around 28.7. Oh, sorry, I can't read that. Got clipped. So these films are crushing it right now. See if there was another lead I was looking for in here. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, after a great Saturday, 10.3 million. Friday's 9.3 million. They're looking at a 28 million over 3 days, which is pretty good. Pretty good. And what is Disney to make of this, I wonder? I just really do wonder. Let me see what if I do. I want to run with this. Yes, I do want to run with this headline. Okay, here we go. So try this headline. 5 reasons Disney's Haunted Mansion flopped at the box office. Look at this garbage. Now let me explain something. Pirates of the Caribbean worked. What now? I would say there's a couple of reasons Pirates of the Caribbean worked. Number one, and it's the biggest reason, is Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp as this character, Jack Sparrow, was brilliant. He was likable. He was interesting. He was conflicting. 1 minute he was a genius. The next minute he was an incompetent boob. 1 minute he was a brilliant strategist. The next minute he was just lucking into everything. You know, you could never figure out where his alliances were, and he was just a great character. Second thing that worked for Pirates of the Caribbean is that it took its world mostly pretty seriously. It took the idea, aside from, the walking skeletons and the magic and all that stuff, the actual the backdrop of the Caribbean pirates, the golden age of piracy, the British Navy, all of those elements were authentic. The costumes were authentic. The way the Navy worked was authentic. That was cool. That was very cool. There was none of this nonsense and this unreality. I think if you wanted to get at this, the way you get at it is like that movie with Liam Neeson back in the day. It was like in the early 2000s I think it was called The Haunting. And I remember really liking that movie. It kind of lost the plot towards the end. But the point is, it wasn't like a hardcore scary horror film, but it like a la The Conjuring. But it was also scary. I think this film should have actually been scary, but it looks like what they went for was Harry Potter type stuff. And it's just the wrong tone for it. Disney has had an admittedly mixed year at the box office. They've had, admittedly, why are they so determined? These shill media people, why are they so determined to protect Disney all the time? Disney has some juice that I cannot explain. And not only are they saying admittedly, they're saying mixed, a mixed year. It's been a failure. They have been an absolute disaster at the box office this year. So liars. They've had hits like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, not to mention the absolute surprise turnaround that has been going on with Elemental. Now, this I did not know about. Your captain might stand corrected, but we'll investigate. But the studio has also suffered some horrible misfires like Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny and Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Sad to say, the new attempt to turn a theme park attraction into a movie, Haunted Mansion, has joined that club following its very disappointing opening. So what are their reasons for this? Too much competition. First and foremost, Disney could not have asked for worse competition. The Barbenheimer phenomenon is still in full swing. So that's number one, a very bad release date. Okay, no ability for the stars to promote it. One of the biggest things this iteration of Haunted Mansion had going for it was a stacked ensemble cast. We had recent Oscar winner Jamie Lee Curtis, Rosario Dawson, Danny DeVito, Lakeith, who cares? Yet, because studios like Disney have refused to come to the negotiating table to try and reach a fair compensation deal with the actors and the writers, the Film Actors Guild is on strike, meaning that none of these big stars were able to promote the film. That absolutely hurt the bottom line, as people who don't live their lives online rely on the press cycle. That would be us and our brave reporting staff to become aware of a movie like this. Oh, please. That is a feature, not a bug. The fact that those actors have shut their trap is probably the best thing that could have happened to Haunted Mansion. Mixed reviews. Of course. We'll read this, Cope. It's not that critical praise always results in a lot of meat in the seats, but it sure as heck never hurts. On the flip side, if a movie fails to garner much must-see buzz, it can absolutely hurt matters, particularly on a weekend when a movie is competing with extremely buzzy crowd pleasers like Barbie, Oppenheimer, Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning, and even Elemental. Unfortunately, Haunted Mansion sits at a lousy 41% critical approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes, which suggests a heavily mixed response. You can read Film's 7 out of 10 review right here. Maybe we will. We'll see. It was way too expensive. Well, there's a surprise. What is it? The fact that this family-friendly horror movie... Please, sir, please. Let's not engage in hyperbole here. Horror movie. This family-friendly horror movie wound up costing $150 million before marketing. Wow. 104. What did he say? 150 million before market. That is so much money. Like, that is so much money. They just as Katie Sackhoff acknowledged, the catering budget of The Mandalorian Season 3 is pretty much the size of the entire Battlestar Galactica budget back in the day. They wipe their ass with dollar bills. That's what they do. So, in any case, I thought that there was a really good point that was made on this score. And I wanted to share this with you. It's from the angriest man on the internet. That would be Ryan Cannell of RK Outpost. Here we go. I thought he made a point here that was really well made. So hat tip RK Outpost. Check out his video. The guy, it's not possible. It's not possible to beat this guy to the punch with entertainment news. It just isn't.
This movie that people are kind of cocking an eyebrow at. Haunted Mansion director wanted to make Disney reboot as black as possible. Now, I am actually going to go into this a little bit and say, I don't think you're super wrong for doing some of these things, but it's a clear double standard, especially when it comes to Disney. The reason that Justin Simien, he's a woke SJW, there's no doubt about that. He's the same one that did Dear White People. But Justin Simien said, I wanted to make it as black as possible because of where it's set, because it's set in New Orleans. New Orleans is the black city. Now, he has a quote out here that is not correct. Filmmaker Justin Simien, who created the Netflix series Dear White People, said he wanted to make the Disney reboot as black as possible. I felt it was really important for the lead to be black because this is set in New Orleans and it's an 85% black town. That's just not true. I even did the looking, most recent census data we have as of July 1st, 2022. It's 58% black, still predominantly black city. So I don't have any problem at all with you wanting to give a good representation of what.
See, and I completely agree with this. Like, I totally agree. I'm like, so that is, aside from the statistical error the director made there, that is a good reason for having representation in a film, because it's like, this is set in New Orleans. It is a primarily African American community. Cool. It makes sense to have the film have focus more on black actors, to have more in the cast. That is, see, that's actually, that's all we've ever asked for. Is like, just have it be grounded in the story, make it have a point, make it have a purpose. Just don't make it this pandering, affirmative action nonsense, this propaganda. Like, you're just so. In any case, I think that actually makes a lot of sense, and that's reasonable. But here is the point. Here is the point that I think gives the lie to this philosophy of representation, because they say this is about equity, this is about inclusion, this is about everybody being represented, but that's not really what it's about.
What's actually going on when it comes to that city. The irony is, it never goes the opposite way for Disney, does it? They're certainly doing everything they can to keep it the opposite of white as possible, which is what I would probably describe 19th century Germany. Same thing when you look at something like The Little Mermaid. They want to do the opposite when it comes to stories that should have just predominantly white characters. But apparently it's okay.
And I will give you 2 examples of when they have complained about this. Dunkirk, the Christopher Nolan film Dunkirk, and just one of the most brilliant films I think I've ever seen, which was 1917, the World War I film. I think it was better than Dunkirk, quite frankly. 1917, if you haven't seen it, one of the most brilliant war films I've ever seen. I absolutely love it. And what were they complaining about? They were complaining about the fact that, there's an awful lot of white people in this World War I film about English soldiers versus German soldiers. There's just an awful lot of white people. And it's like, so this is the point, right? It's like that there's nothing in the world wrong with the fact that a story about Englishmen fighting Germans in World War I, the cast is white. Because that is the geographical makeup of that region. That is the historical makeup of those factions. So here we have basically this racist attitude right here. I'm going to make it as black as possible. You could never say this with certain other races substituted. Imagine if you just flat out, if you said, I'm going to make this as white as possible, you'd be persona non grata. Now, I don't believe anyone should use that phrasing. I think it should just be about, let's tell a story that fits the location. So I quite like his point here, is that this is one film that makes a lot of sense, and it's justified in both the lore of the story and in the geographical location, that there should be that representation there. But it never cuts both ways.
To do that when you end up with the primary part of your cast, the majority part of your cast being black. That's what it looks like Disney's rule of thumb is, apparently. But let's get into this a little more.
Okay, check out the rest of his video over on RK Outpost. And so my point on this is, so The Little Mermaid, right? The Little Mermaid portrays this bizarre, it's like historical but not historical Caribbean island where there's this European but not European country with, a blend of like every culture, every race is represented both under the sea and on land. There's no explanation for it geographically. And yet, what is the predominant culture that is being shown? The story itself, the fable, comes from a European culture, the fable of The Little Mermaid. The original film, the animated film, was based on that European fable. And then you have a essentially a European culture of aristocracy and all of the cultural technology and elements of that, of, I would say, something like a 16th or 17th century time. All of that's been appropriated. And that's fine. That's totally fine. By the way, I don't care. Appropriate it. It's called cultural exchange. It's what humans have been doing since the dawn of time. But the point is, this never cuts both ways. So anyway, I thought I would highlight that very good point, apropos of nothing. So I think Disney is going to learn all the wrong lessons from Barbenheimer. All the wrong lessons. And so I saw, I cannot believe I'm about to tell you this, but I have seen Barbie twice now. Twice. Yes, the word got out that I had seen it, and some family members, well, I want to see it. I want to see it. I said, all right, fine. So my mom was asking about it. She's like, I want to go see it. I want to see it. Do you think I'd like it? I'm like, I think you'd love it. I think you'd love it. It's lots of great feminism in it. You'll love it. Go see it. So I decided to. It was curiosity. And I honestly thought that her reaction to it would be not quite as severe as mine. She actually hated it more than I did. She hated it more than I did. She was like, this is a mess. Like, this is chaos. I'm getting anxiety watching this. I don't understand what's happening. This is like The Flash. She said it was like The Flash. I have no idea what's going on in this movie. And I was like, well, part of the problem is that if they had done it like Elf, right? Elf had the strange world, which was the North Pole. And the elf leaves the North Pole and he comes into the real world. Now that he's in the real world, everything is actually the real world. It's mundane, it's boring, it's corporate culture. He meets his father. He is a real world, like a high-powered executive in a company. If they had just done that with Barbie, I think it could have worked pretty well. I even think there could have been a really charming story in there if it had just been a buddy story between Barbie and Ken's a little bit annoying. You still have all the battle of the sexes stuff in there, but it's a little bit more lighthearted. It's a little bit more playful, a little more tit for tat. And you instead make the primary antagonist of the film, you make it the Mattel Corporation, I think. Not specifically the Mattel Corporation. You make it the current corporate masters of the Mattel Corporation. You make it, in other words, Will Ferrell's character. You make the CEO, Will Ferrell's character, a greedy, manipulative type character, and they don't know that there's a Barbie world, and they only discover it when Barbie comes into the real world. And you just put in some magical bullshit about how they can use this somehow to make lots of money. Like there's a magical power. If they can harness the power of the rift between worlds, they could get an endless supply of profitable toys, something like that. And because they discover this, they are going to go and plunder Barbie Land. And you could still have the subtle undertone of like his sort of, for lack of a better term, his subtle toxic male behavior. I would quote it as, I would frame it as greedy Machiavellian male behavior. The typical, he has that energy of conquest. He wants to conquer Barbie Land. I think you could have still had that. And you could have still had the message about, women being self-determining and, some of the classic feminist tropes, and just make it a battle of the sexes story. And then the story becomes, there is a mother and daughter, Gloria and Sasha. Their relationship is on the rocks, just the same as in the film, although not quite as freaking depressing. And you just have it be that they're going through a hard time as mother and daughter, and they're not communicating, and she's going out and partying and doing things, and the mother's losing her daughter. Barbie comes into the mix, and she's an annoyance at first. She's like Elf, where he's like annoying, and he's burping at the table and all kinds of bad stuff. Of course, except translate it for Barbie. But over time, Barbie starts to worm her way in, kind of like Mrs. Doubtfire. And she starts to kind of repair that relationship between the mother and daughter. And then the bad guys close in, and we have to fight the corporate overlords before they take over Barbie Land. And Ken comes along for the ride. He's mostly kind of a hapless, tag along, but sometimes he's able to overcome his tomfoolery and actually accomplish something. I'm working within the framework of keeping it roughly feminist, right? Because I'm not against that. And I think that's a better movie. As it was, however, the Barbie film just could not decide what the hell it was about. So Wrangler said, "Gotta step away for a few. I'll be back. All right if I borrow the dinghy?" "Yes, sir, but bring it back without a scratch." Without a scratch. Yeah, so, but with that being said, I came across this article, and I just wanted to point something out about this. Let me see if I can find it here. No. Oh, here we go. I just have one reply to this. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one. But I just came across this, and I thought, I have got to share this headline. There we go. Joker actor. Well, what did he even play in this? I can't even tell you. Joker actor Mark Moran, I'm going to pronounce it Mark Moron, calls right-wing men criticizing Barbie a bunch of effing insecure babies. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Insecure mad child. Guilty as charged. May I, sir, just read for you verbatim what a woman in the film had to say. And I quote, "It is impossible to be a woman. We always have to be extraordinary, but somehow we're always doing it wrong. You have to be thin, but not too thin. You have to say you want to be thin. You can't say you want to be thin. You have to say you want to be healthy, but also you have to be thin. You have to have money, but you can't ask for money because that's crass. You have to be the boss, but you can't be mean. You have to lead, but you can't squash other people's ideas. You're supposed to love being a mother, but don't talk about your kids all the damn time. Be a career woman, but always be looking out for other people. You have to answer for men's bad behavior. But if you point that out, you're complaining. You have to stay pretty for men, but not so pretty that you tempt them too much or threaten other women, because you're supposed to be part of the sisterhood, but always stand out and always be grateful, but always acknowledge that the system is rigged and find a way to acknowledge that, but always be grateful. Never get old, never be rude, never show off, never be selfish, never fall down, fail, show fear, or get out of line. It's too hard. It's too contradictory. No one ever gives you a medal or says thank you. And it turns out not only are you doing everything wrong, but everything is your fault. I am so sick and I'm so tired of watching myself and every other woman tie herself into knots so people will like us." So right-wing men criticizing Barbie are a bunch of effing insecure babies. Well, no more than the characters in this film, sir. No more than the characters in this film. Did any of that give you a feeling of, oh, that's definitely not an insecure baby that I just quoted? Anyhow, what an awful movie. I've seen that movie twice, and I'm telling you, Jesus. And then I watched Strange New Worlds. Now I'm so depressed. Oh my God. So I have some retro review recommendations for you. We're going to talk about that. I watched some Stargate SG-1 too. So we'll talk about that. So why don't we talk about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem. The first thing I'm going to say about this movie is I absolutely hate this art style. I just absolutely hate it. It looks psychedelic. It looks busy. It looks fake and phony. It is the visual It is the visual equivalent of trying too hard. It's trying too hard. That's really what it's like. Well, we can't just do animation because then we wouldn't be standing out. So we have to do something that looks new and exciting. And what they come up with is weird, blocky looking characters that there's no sense of reality to it. I mean, if you want really good animation, Into the Spider-Verse, that it's just this side of stylistic and kind of abstract, but it's got enough realism that you can appreciate the athleticism of the spider people. The spider people. Because we want to be inclusive. So I quite like the visual imagery of Into the Spider-Verse. I quite despise Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles' take on this. It's like, if they had been closer to that, it would have been nice. You know, another great animated film this year was Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, which had a kind of storybook drawing style to its art, but there was enough of a consistency and a level of reality to it that it was pleasant to look at. Super Mario Brothers had this really just visually bright, colorful, just popping off the screen, beautiful 3D animation style. I honestly can't even think of a 3D animation film I've ever thought that was more beautiful than Super Mario Brothers. Like, I don't know what it is. There's like, you know, it's whatever 11 herbs and spices they put in that movie. It just was brilliant. It's something Illumination was doing. It just, the colors, it was like every single spot on that screen was hand selected. So Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, definitely a fail on that. I will say this. I think it's a film that almost had its heart in the right place. And I can tell you right now, there are some moments in the movie that start to melt my cold, dead heart just a little bit. Such as when the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, there's a scene in the movie in which they are in the clutches of the villain and they are about to die. Like, things are not going well. And there was a line earlier in the film where one of them said, you know, because they're talking about how they want to go to the surface and they want to meet humans and have a normal life in high school and things like that. And like, I just can't live with the idea that the first and last thing I'm ever going to see in my life is your faces. I'm going to die, and the last thing I'm going to see is your faces. I love you, bro, but that's not what I want for my life. Well, fast forward to this scene. They're in the clutches of the monster, and one of the turtles says, I know that I said I wouldn't want the last thing before I die to be seeing your faces, but I was wrong. There's no place I'd rather be than with you, my brothers. And I was like, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good line. So there were moments in the film that certainly earned some of the praise it's getting, because there were moments in the film that had real heart. Why do I say it had its heart almost in the right place? Well, because it did actually follow a pretty good story structure. It actually followed I would say this was a rites of passage kind of superhero story. And it followed those beats pretty closely and pretty carefully. It had all the right ingredients for a film where they go on a journey, they encounter the bad guy, they're tempted by evil, they overcome that temptation, and they beat the bad guy. And I think all that was pretty good. However, all of this is stewing in a kind of turtle soup, I would say, of the modern zeitgeist, the modern moral zeitgeist, which is one of the most depressing things I can think of, because it is a zeitgeist that has been fashioned by, well, let's just face it, this. It has been fashioned by the Black Mirror. I seriously think sometimes maybe I am living in an Orwellian dystopia. I just don't know it, because does a fish know it's wet? You know, it's like you watch movies like Ready Player One and you think, wow, those people must be so miserable living in that dystopia, but they don't seem to know they're in a dystopia. I'm like, well, maybe we don't. Maybe we are and we just don't know it. Or maybe we do. I don't know. But it is a culture of narcissism that we live in. And this movie is yet one more example of it. It is one more example of a superhero story that is fixated on how the principal characters, the heroes, essentially all they care about is themselves. All they want is fame and fortune and, as this film puts it, acceptance. They want acceptance and they want to belong. Now, on the one hand, this is not that far removed from a young Luke Skywalker on a boring farm on Tatooine, longing for a life of adventure and excitement and wanting to go with his friends to join the rebellion so he can, that on the one hand, this story kind of has that because the turtles live in the sewers and they want to go to the surface. They want to be part of the human world. They want to just go to high school and have high school friends and play sports. Like that's what they long for. And all of that is fine. The part of it that bothers me is that it's very deeply rooted in this idea of how that they want to be famous, they want to be celebrated, they want it's all about what they want for themselves. It's a very selfishly motivated. What was the line? There was one line in this. So yeah, they want to be thought of as cool and they want to be able to live a normal life. So it's kind of 50-50 for me. On the one hand, it's very selfish narcissist. We want to be cool. We want to be able to do, we want to be Twitch streamers. That's they basically want to be like TikTokers and be cool and everything. But then there's the other side of it, which is they just want a normal life. Now that side of it, I like that part. What does Splinter ultimately want for them by the end of the film? Because he goes on a journey as well. There's a point in the film where he says, we're going to beat the bad guy. Hang on, let me think about this. Am I spoiling anything here? I don't think so, because I'm not really revealing. I'll call this possible light spoilers. I'm going to keep this mostly spoiler-free. I don't think this is a spoiler because it's more about the philosophical point. But essentially, in Act 3 of the film, Splinter's motivation for helping his sons defeat the bad guy is that he wants he wants people to love and accept them. This reminds me of Miles Morales' mother saying, I want you to remember you're my little boy. And when you go out there and people tell you that you don't belong, you just know that you do belong. And you are Miles Morales, and you are your own person, and you do belong. And I'm just like, God, this is so depressing. I'm so depressed by this mentality because I'm thinking to myself, there's nothing about service or responsibility or helping people. It's never about like, oh, something bad is happening to someone. This actually helps me bring it into focus. In the first 2 acts of this film, the turtles do not care about crime. They do not care about bad things happening to good people. Nothing they do outside of the sewers is motivated by any of that. They're not even really particularly interested in having an adventure. All they want to do is be idiot kids. That's basically all they want to do. And they spend most of their time. A lot of this movie kind of MTV music video, which just is really annoying. It's really, it's really annoying. It's one of these things where, have you noticed all of these movies coming out lately, like Venom and, this movie? What else? What's another good example? There's one, Barbie is another good example. They go to Santa Monica, they go to LA. They're going to all of these left-wing cities that are rotting. Cities that are full of homelessness, drug abuse, fentanyl death, needles in the streets, human feces in the streets, looting, rioting, stealing. People are fleeing these cities. They're moving out of them in droves. And what do we get in these movies? We get this Orwellian fake propaganda image of what they're. It's like in North Korea when they create fake storefronts to, like, for the odd foreign visitor or dignitary who might happen to see a part of one of their rotted cities They just put up some fake phony storefronts to make it look like there's abundant food and resources. That's what this feels like to me, because this movie portrays New York City the way New York City was like 25 years ago when Mayor Giuliani was running it. And it was a clean, beautiful city. Or perhaps in a time even earlier than that, before like the 70s and 80s when it was a mess, maybe more like 40s or 50s New York, where it was a clean city. There was tight-knit communities and cultures. That's the way this movie acts like New York City is. It's a lie. It's a freaking lie. It's like, this city is not safe. Would you like any evidence of this? Would you like any evidence of what this city is like right now? I believe I can find it. Yeah, there it is. There is a Twitch streamer named Kai Senat, or Senat. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. And he decided, he's a 20-year-old, he decided to do an impromptu PlayStation 5 giveaway. And what happened was he created a crowd in Union Square, New York City, that turned into a complete riot, mostly of young people. Mostly young people just tearing shit up for no reason. I mean, here you go.
Everybody for themselves. There's a war out there, man.
This morning, a popular Twitch streamer is out on bail in New York City. Investigators say he incited a riot causing chaos. We now know more than 60 people were arrested during this event, and hundreds of people were treated for minor injuries. New York police say Casanet promised his more than 6 million Twitch followers that he would have free PlayStation 5s to give away at this event. But he did not have them and quickly lost control of the crowd. NYPD confirms the crowd was largely made of thousands of underage teenagers. Witnesses say these teens gathered in this area quickly went from riled up to violent.
I saw people fighting around me. I saw two guys pushing. They went down my stuff. So I was really scared.
Casanet faced.
Yeah, let me see if I can find some of this.
Chaos broke out in New York City's
Look
Union
at this.
Square on Friday.
They were
after
jumping on
Twitch streamer
cars.
Kai Cenat held a giveaway event. Cenat, who has over 15 million followers across social media platforms, said during a Wednesday Twitch stream that he would be hosting a huge giveaway Friday at 4 p.m. in Union Square.
What goes on from here on out, bro? You feel what I'm saying? Everybody for themselves. There's a war out there, man.
Crowds gathered and became unruly, blocking traffic, throwing debris, and clinging to moving cars.
Yeah, so that gives you a sense of what happened. Right? So what is my point here? My point is the New York City that is presented in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, it's a freaking lie. It's a lie. It's like this New York City does not exist anymore. This idea that, teenagers are out there, they're just having a good time. They're watching movies on the lawn over there in the park and everything's great. It's like, this is a city that is festering and rotting. And what do I see in this movie? I see 4 teenagers who are played very well by their talented cast, and they have moments where they're very charming and endearing, but mostly all they care about is looking good and being popular and being cool. And that's not necessarily counter to having a good story, a good character journey. But the problem is, I've seen previous adaptations of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in which they were raised by a ninja master, Splinter, who had wisdom, who had morals, who had a attitude of selflessness. Think of the the late 1980s when the first film came out? I believe it was like 1989, possibly. Or it was at least the early 90s. But that first original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles live action film, Splinter, when he speaks, the turtles sit down and listen. They can't wait to hear what he's going to tell them. He tells them stories that are fables, that are cautionary tales. He teaches them that they must look out for people, that they must use their powers for good, that they must always have a moral purpose. And the turtles in that movie are reckless at times. They do show off, they do want popularity and fame, but Splinter immediately admonishes them for their arrogance and teaches them that they have to have humility and that they have to use their powers responsibly, their training responsibly. The Splinter of this film is an angry, bigoted, really quite pathetic old man who is mostly ignored by his sons, who is literally the reason he even knows ninja skills is because he tried to take the turtles up to the surface world because they were curious about humans, and they were attacked as monsters, and a mob of evil humans tried to hunt them down and kill them. And so now he has learned all these ninja skills so they can defend themselves against humans, which Splinter considers to be evil brutes, and he hates them. And he wants no part of them. And so he teaches his sons to be fearful and bigoted towards humans, and teaches them that the purpose for their skills is to defend themselves against the hordes of humanity that would seek to kill them. And this is another weird thing in this movie, and milk them. I shit you not. There's the line of the movie. It's like he is obsessed with the idea that humans are going to find the turtles and milk them. Now, I heard this line and I'm like, wait, what? What? Did I hear that correctly? And then I'm like, what is this about? Well, it turns out he's referring to, he thinks that humans are going to find them and drain their blood to get the secret of their mutant powers or whatever. And I'm just saying, what an odd way to frame. And it's supposed to be like a joke. It mostly falls flat, I think. Anyhow, so you contrast this Splinter that is ignored by his sons. He's an annoyance to them. And frankly, half the time when he's chastising his sons for things they've done wrong, he's actually just as, he's just as in the wrong as they are, because all of the reasons he's doing it are based totally on his paranoia and bigotry toward humans. It's not about the ethics of being a samurai warrior. It's not about I believe the original Splinter in the film, I haven't read the comics, so I'm not going off of the comic book source material. So I don't know what they were like in the comics. I know the animated show I used to watch when I was a kid. So the animated show, the classic animated show, and the live action film. So the live action film had a Splinter that had learned from his human master the abilities of the techniques of ninja fighting, and not just ninja fighting, but the ninja mindset and morality. And so he had this attitude of service, and there was this element of wisdom to the character. And that was quite beautiful. And I think, wow, isn't it incredible that Hollywood is absolutely incapable of writing a character like this? There can't ever be a mentor that is just teaching his sons how to be good men in the world. So that is one thing that I find awful about this film. All of the cultural references are topical. They are forgettable. They make references to like Attack on Titan. They make references to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, as if basically they're basing the culture of these characters on the culture of another fictional world. So it's like they're talking about comparing themselves to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, I think of this as the writers of this film, that would be, let me pull up my IMDb on this. I know Seth Rogen was one. Who was the other one? Grab that. Grab me the full cast and crew. Okay, here we go. So directed by Jeff Rowe, Kyler Spears. Writing, Seth Rogen, Evan Goldberg, Jeff Rowe, also the director. So I read this as Seth Rogen, Evan Goldberg, Jeff Rowe. They're basing the culture of the teenagers in this film on the character's interpretation of another fictional culture, which is Marvel movies and anime. And I find this very, what's the word I'm looking for? I find it vapid. You know, if you go and watch that original Turtles film, I think you will find timeless, classic ideas that will stand the test of time. I think if you watch this, you watch Mutant Mayhem 20 years from now, no one's going to get a single reference in this film. No one's going to understand what the hell the Turtles are talking about from moment to moment. And I think that's how you get this bizarre morality in the film where in the very first act, they witness a crime happening to none other than April O'Neil. And believe me, we're going to get to April O'Neil here in just a minute. But they witness a crime happening to April O'Neil. They're not motivated to stop the crime because it's a crime, because something bad is happening to someone. Instead, Leonardo notices that April O'Neil is pretty. She's not, but the character thinks she's pretty, and basically says, hey, I think we should save her because then she'll like us. And that would be cool to have a friend. And so basically, in order to get something from her, they are going to help her out. Later in the film, their entire motivation for stopping the bad guys is exactly the same. They just want to get fame so that they'll be able to go to school and people will like them. So I find all of this quite depressing. The parts of the film that are close to having the heart in its right place is when they're having, when they're being brothers and they're taking care of each other. I think that is a really great part of the film. There is a part of the film where Splinter comes in, saves the day, and he changes his mind. And the characters do go through some growth. Splinter lets go of some of his bigotry. By the way, Splinter's not gay. that was, bounding into comics needs to just chill. They just need to chill just a little bit. He says twice, he uses the pronoun her in relation to, what the hell is the name of the character? Scumbucket, I think. Oh my God. Now that being said, watching a giant fly with its, slobbering mandibles make out with a giant rat, why? Why is this? Like, who cares? Gay or straight, who cares? Why is this a thing in this movie? It's one of the grossest, oddest. I think they're trying to play it for laughs, but it is so gross. It is so weird. I just don't. It's like do you have holes? It's like that kind of a thing. So anyway, I just thought I would correct the record on that. But even so, it's the whole point is, why do we need Splinter to be making out with a giant fly? Regardless of which gender it is. Like, why is that a thing which we need in this film? I don't know. Another thing I noticed in this film, what is it with modern cinema and this bizarre morality of the villains where, for whatever reason, we just don't, remember the Foot? Do you remember the Foot? Like Shredder and the Foot. They were just a gang of thugs. They were a gang of evil SOBs, and they were out to terrorize New York City. They stole from people. They killed people. Why did they do it? Because there were things other people had and they wanted them. And they were going to take them by force because they could. And there was that whole arc in the original film of, the way that they would recruit new foot soldiers was sort of lost teenagers who didn't really have a place to belong. And they were brought into this gang pretty much the way you get indoctrinated into a gang. It's like, hey, this is a brotherhood. We all take care of each other here. And I liked the idea of how Shredder was a Pied Piper who would supply arcade games and all kinds of fun and be like, yeah, go play, have fun. And it was part of his way of indoctrinating them into essentially a criminal cult of just lunatic soldiers that would do bad things to people. And that was a big element of the film. Like Casey Jones' amazing speech to some of the young people in that film that talks them down from believing in Shredder's lies is excellent. It's really, so there's a slightly analogous situation in this film where the mutants that are serving the big bad are, I guess this is something of a spoiler. Well, let me think about this. All I will say is I have noticed a trope in which bad guys suddenly just, with one line of dialogue, are convinced to no longer be bad guys. It's like, hey, what you're going to do is really awful, and that's kind of uncool. Are you sure you want to do that? And it's totally played for laughs. It's like, well, on second thought, total genocide does sound like kind of a not cool thing to do. I don't think I want to do that now. And it's played to be a joke. And so the problem with this film is, on the one hand, it wants to have heart. It wants to have a moral tale. It wants to have a coming of age story. On the other hand, just like in the MCU, just like in Disney Star Wars, every single moment that has dramatic weight, dramatic tension, a touching emotional core, all of that is constantly undermined by stupid jokes that are meta, and they are making fun of the characters in the scene. Perfect example. Leonardo wants to be the leader. He wants to be the leader, but he sucks at it, and he's not that confident. He's basically a soy boy. He's a soy boy. But by the end of the film, he accumulates a certain amount of confidence, and there's a moment when Raphael says to Leonardo, hey, you actually were like a leader today. You were actually like a leader. Good job, bro. And he's like, I was a leader. Hey, guys, I'm a leader. He's like, and now you've ruined it. I ruined it, didn't I? I ruined it. And I'm like, they can't allow one thing. They couldn't allow one just powerful moment between brothers to pass. It was like, he could have just had it be, something, you really stepped up today, bro. And you actually sounded like a leader. I'm proud of you. It's like, yeah, well, thanks, brother. Thanks, and just let that moment exist. Just let it exist. But I think the reason that we can't allow it to exist is because our society has a deep sense of shame about itself. Part of this is wacko leftist politics have indoctrinated an entire generation of young people to hate themselves, to hate their country, to hate their gender, to hate their race, to basically hate just about anything it's possible to hate. To divide themselves into tribalistic groups, constantly vying for hierarchy, constantly vying for attention, acceptance, and affirmation. And I think the idea that you are not to be proud of your country, you're not to be proud of your community, you're not to be proud of your family, you're not to be proud of your elders because they're bigoted and they're from a bigoted time. You are not to be proud of anything. And what is that? You're not to believe in anything. I'm no holy roller, but even so, God is gross to these people. And so what are young people left with? Well, they're left with a sense of deep-seated anxiety. They are left with a sense of deep-seated confusion. Who are they? What are they to believe in? Where is the actual meaning in life? And what I think this has resulted in is an inability to tell stories in which there are wise mentors, in which there is selflessness and self-sacrifice, in which it is a natural inborn instinct of the characters to help innocent people who are in need. The Turtles are not motivated by this in the movie. They are not motivated by an instinctive need to help people. That only comes later. I mean, okay, fine. You know what? Spoiler alert. Spoilers are up. I don't think it's going to be a big spoiler, but I'm on the line here, so I want to be fair. I want to be fair to my audience. So if you don't want spoilers for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you have been warned. Or in the words of Judge Dredd, you have been warned. It's not a big spoiler, but I would just say it's the moment when the Turtles realize the true meaning of their mission, which is they are in a major battle in the third act of the film, and up to this point, their only motivation for being heroes has been that they want the city to like them so that they'll be cool and accepted, and then they can go to high school and have fun. That's basically their entire motivation. And so essentially, their heroism is a con. It's a con that they're pulling on the city. They're basically doing heroic things for a totally selfish, self-centered reason. And there comes a moment in the film where they're losing, and they say, you know what, guys, we've been doing this for the wrong reason. We should be doing this just to help people for the sake of helping people. And I'm like, well, credit to the film for recognizing that it needed to at some point have an actual moral center to it. But the problem I have with this is that Peter Parker learned a valuable lesson. He learned a very painful lesson when Uncle Ben is killed because he chooses to ignore a crime. But I never get the sense from Peter Parker's character that he did not have an instinct for good right from the beginning. Peter Parker had a sense of fair play and justice because that's how he was raised. He was raised by Aunt May and Uncle Ben, and they taught him moral integrity. They taught him to be a good person, to do good things for people. And the reason that Peter Parker lets the criminal go was not because Peter Parker never cared or did not care. It was because in that moment, he was tempted by revenge and he had a moment of bad judgment. He had a moment of selfishness and he paid a terrible price. But just take the first Sam Raimi film, which I think captures Peter Parker's character, frankly, the best of any of the film adaptations. The very first Sam Raimi film. In that film, Peter Parker, right from the beginning, is a good person. Yes, he's down on his luck. Yes, he gets bullied. Occasionally, he wants petty revenge on Flash Thompson. There are those elements of his character, but he is still the person who's going to help Uncle Ben paint the house. He's still the person that, cares about Aunt May and, wants to take care of her and listens to what they have to teach him. And what I see in this movie is these four turtles are being raised by essentially a bigoted, racist father who they mostly consider an annoyance, who mostly kind of is an asshole, frankly, does not teach them wisdom. Mostly, even Splinter is self-centered in this. All he wants is his sons to spend time with him. And so he does things just to get them to spend time with him. He even misleads them by creating a pizza party in this that will sort of lure them back home to visit him. And as soon as that charade falls apart, he gets angry and he's like, what have you been out there doing every night? And I just think, why can't we have heroic characters that have an instinct for being heroic? Why does it take all the way until the third act for them to learn to be good people? So there is a total lack of a moral center. The artistic style, not very good. There are some good moments between the brothers, and there is story structure. I give the film credit for that. But let's talk about well, you know what? I did have a phrase for kind of what the references in this film, all of them being topical. It's cultural sloppy seconds. That's what it is. It's cultural sloppy seconds. It's like Marvel and the Guardians of the Galaxy have already created all of these memes, already created all of these, the MCU humor that we've all become so familiar with. And this movie is just kind of repeating that formula and then referencing those films, referencing anime, referencing the MCU. And I find that to be very lazy. Very lazy indeed. So, April O'Neil. Why did they choose to make this character fat and dumpy? Let's just say it. She is one of the most unappealing characters I've ever seen. She's obese. She's pre-diabetic. What is the obsession with this? What is the obsession with encouraging young people to simply just be mediocre, to just be overweight and unhealthy? You know what? What was I doing in school all those years when my PE teachers were putting me through hell? You know, Lieutenant, you're stretching, your ability to touch your toes is just not where it should be. You're at 20% body fat. That's way too much. You're not able to climb the rope. Look, I was a nerd. And that was back when I was still a lieutenant. I had not yet been promoted. And they were. My point is, like, I'd go in those. I dreaded the PE day when they would do all the tests. They would tell, and they gave, at least in my case, they gave me all the bad news. They're like, you really need to have some flexibility. You need to be able to tumble. What? When was I ever going to use that skill? By the way, you need to be able to somersault. Why can't you somersault? Anyway, this was what I was put through in school, and now they tell me, oh no, they should have been telling you to just be fat and be proud. Be fat, be inflexible, and be proud. So anyway, I wanted to turn your attention. I think it's, let me allow Melanie Mack to explain this, because I think she put this quite well.
Into this video, people are mad. People are very mad. Even me saying all this made people even more mad. But I mean, people want to sit here and argue and say, but she's cute. What are you talking about? She's cute. Okay, maybe you can think that. Maybe individually you might think she's attractive or she's just as gorgeous as she's ever been. But don't fool yourself into thinking that conventionally that is the case. And people love to just pull the race card on this situation, but this has nothing to do with race, because drop dead gorgeous black women exist. I think that it's extremely racist to imply otherwise, to imply that the reason we think she is unattractive is because of her race. How absurd. Okay, now I think that it's completely valid for people to want April O'Neil to look like she did in the past and to be accurate to her character, in this case, her race, and her last name being O'Neil. Clearly, she's of Irish or Scottish descent. So that is completely fair to want, but the whole notion that wanting her attractive is racist is just absurd. And I made this tweet, which, oh my gosh, did people get mad? I said, as always, people are pulling the racist card at any April O'Neil criticism. White activists with that, because that is most of who's complaining. April is.
So that's Melanie Mack. Check out her video on this. It's very good. It was why April O'Neil is ugly. TMNT. She's exactly right about this, by the way. But she also made this point. Let me see. Yeah, here it is. I love this point that she made, because the issue is there is an insistence. There is an insistence that we are to accept mediocrity. We are to accept being average in our society. We are, and why is this, by the way? Who benefits from this? Who benefits from this propagandistic, frankly, malicious, I think, promotion of obesity as to be accepted? Well, I think it happens to be the giant pharmaceutical companies that make all the drugs that keep people alive. I happen to think it is the factory farmers. It is the giant robber baron owners of just massive swaths of land. It is that are depleting our soils. It is the people that are producing processed foods that are nutrient poor and high in fat, high in salt, and are making all of us unhealthy. We eat and eat and eat, and we don't feel satisfied. Why? Because there's no nutrients in our food. And if you don't believe me, try eating, or get the most organic lettuce you can find at the store, then eat lettuce or tomatoes that are from a garden, and you won't even believe the difference. If you've eaten from a homegrown garden, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That's all the evidence you need that these giant corporations are feeding us crap and it's killing us. Now, I'm not saying they're the only ones to fault. This is a two-way street. It takes two to tango. We as a society, we as individuals need to take responsibility. At the end of the day, companies are only giving us what we're buying. But my point is, promoting this attitude is benefiting these people. And they don't deserve that benefit. These corporations that are depleting our soils, depleting the nutrients in all of our foods, serving us crap. And now they're saying, when we have the audacity to try and break free of the brainwashing and the programming and actually be healthy and in the gym. Well, that's just being right wing. Okay. Being healthy is right wing. Well, I guess I'm a right wing maniac then. So anyway, to continue. So she makes this point, and I quite like this point, and I agree with her.
Biologically speaking, that's how we're programmed. Jane Theory here, she said, I asked an AI to create a black version, and this is what it came up with. This is what I was talking about. She's talking to Nina about this, apparently. So, and look at how.
So look at this. So what happened was Jane Theory, hat tip Jane Theory, hat tip Melody Mack, in case I didn't say it, basically used AI art to say, okay, why don't we do a hot black April O'Neil? What might that look like? And look at how stunning these images are. Look at how cool that is. Honestly, she reminds me of a character from like Metal Slug. You remember those games, those arcade games, Metal Slug? I love those games. And the chicks were hot. Anyway, I mean, the AI did some weird things in the background there. But the point is, April O'Neil, any of these versions, I think the one in the lower left here is actually my favorite, would have been excellent. Would have been super cool.
How these are all beautiful. Like this one especially.
By the way, the art style in the lower left is what the film should have actually looked like. It should have looked like an actual, not the background characters, because the AI went a little wonky there. But like it should have looked like a comic book with lifelike characters.
Really, I love this one. Now, I personally prefer April without glasses, but even so, like, gosh, she looks like a bombshell here. She's stunning. Okay. Sorry, this is just hilarious. But no, anyway, it's just like the amount of people just so.
That's a good one. The potato. April O'Neil's a potato. Yes, perfect. Absolutely perfect. Now, what is the real issue with this? The real issue with this is that April O'Neil is a tokenized character. She is a tokenized character. What is a tokenized character? Well, I will allow Eric July to explain that. So definitely, so check out the rest of Melanie Mack's video, and then also check out this video from Eric July. It is excellent because what it really explains is there a problem with diversity in storytelling? Absolutely not. In films, absolutely not. And we didn't have a diversity problem in the 90s, the early 2000s, when nobody was talking about it. We were just doing it. We were just bringing diverse characters naturally into stories in ways that serve the plot, that serve the characters. But what we have now is a fake, phony, propagandistic tokenization. Now, what is that?
I figured I'd do a dedicated video explaining what exactly it is and the issues that stem from it. Instead of going back and forth with some brainlet in the comment section, just send them this video and call it a day. There wasn't even a Webster's dictionary entry for tokenism when I first started using it in videos. I do not care what you personally think that it is or that you think I should use a different term. Not important. So let me define tokenism first and foremost in this context. Tokenism is the gender, race, or sexuality change of a pre-established character. We call this tokenism because it's usually only done one direction and it's purposeful and with intent. Once that tokenism occurs, we call that manifestation a tokenization, and it doesn't matter if there's a supposed mantle at play. There is some sort of unoriginality with every tokenization, but not all unoriginal characters are tokenized. We'll also address that in a bit. I almost exclusively talk about tokenization in the comic book space. As mentioned, this happens in a couple of different ways. Most notably are female versions of classically male characters. Kara Zor-El, aka Supergirl, would be considered a tokenized version of Superman because, as implied by the name, she was created to be a female version of the already.
So that basically explains what is it. And the next part I wanted to show you, yeah, here it is this point.
Tokenization is tokenization. Now, you may ask, what is the actual problem with tokenization? Well, for starters, it's lazy, and for different reasons. Instead of coming up with a brand new character, you're opting to simply try to copy a previous one in hopes that it sticks. In this day and age, this is inexcusable considering how quickly the word can get around because of social media, and you got these modern marketing tools. And considering the vast amounts of work that had to be done, the decades upon decades of development when it comes to these certain characters, for them to remain staples of American culture, just creating a swapped version of that character is especially lazy. It goes without saying that some of these changes that happen in live action are among the worst kinds and are always purposeful. No casting in Hollywood is done just by simply merit or this idiocy of the best person for the job. The fact that you even see that with animated characters tells you that. So black character development or new black characters are almost non-existent as the studios just continue to hash out tokenized versions of classically white ones. Not to mention, most of this is done.
So check out the rest of Eric's video. It's about 10 minutes long. Basically, tokenism and tokenization explained. I think he has, in my view, the very best explanation of why this swapping is a problem, and why, when they do it, they're lying. When they say that, if you see a problem with it, you're the one with the problem. We just hired the best person for the job. Well, you know that's a lie because it never goes the other way. It would never go the other way. The race doesn't matter. We can have black Vikings. That in a historical epic about Vikings, that's totally fine. We can have Cleopatra be black. What's wrong with you, bigot? But then would we want to make Haunted Mansion set in New Orleans? Well, New Orleans is a primarily black city, so we have to have a primarily black cast. That makes perfect sense. Why do you have a problem with that, bigot? If you have a problem with that, I don't. And so Eric's explanation of this is exceptional. And that's really the point that he's making, is that it comes from, at its most basic element, it comes from a kind of laziness and a bigotry of low expectations. It's too much work to create an original character of another race and put in the time, effort, and energy to actually build an audience with that character, make them an iconic character. Instead of doing all that work, we'll just take a white character, and in order to appear to be virtuous people, we will give that white character we'll give them as a token offering to a minority character. And it's really a quite condescending and insidious practice. And it is, in and of itself, I think, counterproductive to diversity. But that being said, as I just explained, they could have easily made April O'Neil a hot black character. They could have made her, but the problem with this whole movie is that every single character in it is a dweeb. Like, every single one. All of the turtles are dweebs. Splinter is a dweeb. April O'Neil is a dweeb. Now, I don't have a problem with a character being nerdy or getting bullied or whatever, and that's part of their character journey. But every single one, this tells me that these writers, they are themselves insecure. They are themselves deeply insecure people that are very lost. Just completely lost. And they have no sense of how to write a story about wisdom, to write a story about self-sacrifice and heroism. All they can do is write a story about narcissism, about being socially awkward with awkward meta humor, self-deprecating humor. That it's their only setting. It's their default setting. It's their NPC download. They don't know any other way to style their characters. It's boring and it's lazy. And what it has resulted in is a film that is 4 out of 5 bars on the epaulets for the captain. 4 out of 5 bars for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem. It is below average for me. It is below average. It is not the most offensive thing I've seen. It's not it's fine. It had a couple of moments that were a little bit nice. Mostly the art is garbage. The morality in the film is pathetic. The interpretation of the characters is the most uninteresting I've ever seen. The performances are nice. I like the voice acting. The story structure is serviceable. It works. There's a couple of moving emotional beats between the turtles that signal, brotherhood, friendship, those kinds of things. When the film is in that space, I think it's pretty effective. That's about the only time that it is. There's also a lot of weird, gross that makes no sense to me. Why is Splinter making out with the slobbering mandibles of a giant, gross fly? I don't know. Why does he keep referring to the idea of scientists extracting the turtle's blood as milking? Why does he keep saying that? Why is this considered to be funny? I don't, it is at its core a film about the most narcissistic generation, which is Generation Z. And, I hope that they come out of this. I really do. Mistake, kids, get off my lawn. Get off my lawn. So yeah, I would say so look, is it as bad as Dial of Destiny? Is it as bad as Barbie? No, it's not quite that bad. And I actually think I can see why people who are enjoying it because I will say it has one thing going for it that Barbie and The Flash and Dial of Destiny do not have going for them. And that is that it is, at least partially fun and at least partially lighthearted. And it at least tells a story about heroes who win and save the day. And so for that reason, it is not the worst thing I've seen all year. So that is my sterling recommendation. No, I'm not. I am not. I'm saying you can wait till it comes out on streaming would be my advice. Anything I missed? I don't think so. I think I pretty much hit all the points. They do use a plot element of Attack on Titan is how they beat the bad guy in the film, and I found that one of the laziest, weirdest choices I've seen. Yes. That's pretty much it. Also, one other thing. Why does April O'Neil wear a helmet in this film that makes me think of, the kind of helmet you wear when, how can I put this delicately, you are mentally handicapped? That is all I can say. It really strikes me as she's very special. Oh dear. Well, it turns out that I read an article last stream from one Tomek Baginski, who is the executive producer of The Witcher. And it served as evidence that your captain was correct. Quite correct. When I said that these filmmakers and our media think we are stupid people, like really, really dumb. And so I reacted to this article. Well, it turns out this guy's not, apparently, all the criticism that Mr. Baginski has been getting over this, it struck a nerve. It struck a nerve. So this is what I said. Let me share this with you. Yes, here we are. All right, hang on. Present. Yeah, so this is what your captain said in his previous trenchant analysis. Let us continue with Mr. Baginski. Thus, said the Knights of the Zodiac director, When a series is made for a huge mass of viewers with different experiences from different parts of the world, and a large part of them are, Americans, these simplifications not only make sense, they're necessary for our stupid audience. Meaning Basinski is saying, like, yeah, we simplify the plot for our stupid audience. It's painful for us and for me too. We would like to have an intellectual story, but the higher level of nuance and complexity will have a smaller range. It won't reach people, especially MAGA supporters. I am editorial. I am paraphrasing at certain parts here. So there you have it. So yes, I had quite a lot to say to Mr. Brzezinski. Well, it turns out that Mr. Brzezinski is a little salty about this criticism he's been getting from our corner of the internet. And so this is what he said. So Bounding Into Comics called him out because he quoted, this is what Brzezinski said. Make sure I have this, yes, so you can see it. Ironic, lazy, clickbait title. He's talking about the Bounding Into Comics article that I read on the last stream. Ironic, lazy, clickbait title based on quite rough translation. Do you try to prove the point? My view is a bit more nuanced and complex. Now, my dear sailors and starnauts, on the last stream, I spent a good while on this article. I read every quote he had in detail. So all of the nuance was there. Well, Bounding Into Comics, I love that they quote tweeted him here and we're like, seen this so many times before from those in Hollywood, always backtracking after they get called out for their own statements. Sad. Yes, sad, very sad. Then he said, I stand by my statements in Polish in the context of the rest of these interviews. I can't take responsibility for a media spin. That's on you, sweethearts. Well, we're very touchy about this, aren't we? Notice he doesn't, at no point does he say, no, I don't think that the fans, can't handle a more nuanced story. What I said was, or what I meant was, no, he doesn't say any of that. He just says, oh, no, I was being nuanced and complex. Now, notice how he words this, ironic. Do you try to prove my point? My view is a bit more nuanced and complex. So what he's saying here is that, isn't it ironic? You've just proven I was right, that you can't understand nuance and complexity, laughy emoji. So in the exact same breath that he's trying to deny that this is what he's saying, he's basically saying exactly that. He's saying, oh, see, you proved my point. You can't understand nuance and complexity. They're such liars. They're so phony. They are so phony, these people. All right, so that was his, yes. So I tell you that to tell you this. I got another headline for you to prove how absolutely not dismissive of the fans he was being. Hang on, where is it? Here it is. Okay. There it is. Netflix's The Witcher writer, Javier Grillo Marchal, tries to claim that series scriptwriters read, respect the books, immediately disproves his own argument. Well, what do we have here? In the wake of the absolute disaster that was the series' third season, Netflix's The Witcher scribe, Javier Grillo Marchal, has attempted to run damage control by claiming that despite the many deviations they made from the source material, every member of the series' writer's room read and respects Andrzej Sapkowski's original novels. Further, in a twist of unintended hilarity, the very evidence Grillo Marchal put forth in support of his argument ultimately disproves his entire point. On July 28th, seemingly responding to the regular criticisms leveled toward the series' blatant ignoring of the source material, everybody has a plan till they get punched in the face. Grillo Marchal took to his personal Twitter/X account to declare, "For those who claim that we don't respect the books, the writer's draft of The Witcher 306 absolutely began with Dijkstra holding Geralt at knife point as he pissed into a plant. I have the pages to prove it." Yet, despite Grillo Marx's own apparent confidence in his declaration, the original scene plays completely differently, to the point where the only commonality the two versions share are their characters and the inciting incident. As seen in the 4th chapter of Sapkowski's 4th The Witcher novel, Time of Contempt, the scene in question begins immediately after Geralt and Yennefer spend an intimate night together ahead of the conclave of mages. And here is the quote from the book. "Had it not been for the foolish scruples of the Witcher and his impractical principles, many subsequent events would have run their course quite differently. Many events would probably have not taken place at all, and the history of the world would have unfolded in an alternative way. But the history of the world unfolded as it unfolded, the sole cause of which was that the Witcher had scruples. When he awoke in the morning with the need to relieve himself, he didn't do what any other man would have done. He didn't go out onto the balcony and piss into a flower pot of nasturtiums. He had scruples. He dressed quietly without waking Yennefer, who was sleeping deeply, motionless and barely breathing. He left the chamber and went out to the garden." From there, things play out quite differently from Grillo Marx's recap of the scene, as not only is Geralt not apprehended until after his bathroom break, but rather than Dijkstra, whose name, in yet another undercutting of his own claim of having engaged with the source material, the writer misspelled as Distrika. What? How do you pronounce Distrika? So you can see the spelling here, Dijkstra, and then the writer of the show spells it Dystrka. It is actually his Redanian intelligence officers who actually accost the hero. So there, he's basically quoted exactly from the book. Met with confusion from a fellow user who actually thought this was meant to be sarcasm, the former Netflix's Cowboy Bebop writer explained less sarcasm than something Betty White would say before offering up an explanation as to why they chose to change the scene. FWIW, what does that mean? That acronyms, is there no justice? We did consider that Geralt would exit the bedchamber to urinate, but once we landed on 305, ending with the revelation of Villefort's treachery, we decided that while it was a dark irony in prose, it would not serve the cliffhanger episode ending. Pressed by another user as to why he would not listen to the fans instead of fight them, Grillo Marx pushed back. "We do listen and take a lot into account. Truth be told, when it doesn't come attached to a length of chain and a crowbar." Look at this. All the guy said to him is, why not listen to the fans instead of fight them? He didn't say anything rude. He didn't say anything mean. And the guy still, look, these people are so salty. They think they are entitled to your fandom. They think they can trash. They can take these books, they can rip them up, they can race swap, they can stuff them full of all this identity politics garbage, and then call us all bigots for taking issue with any of it. And then they say, well, gee, we'd listen to you if you weren't so mean. Like, fuck these people. I'm serious. Like, screw you, Mr. Grillo Marxhouse. Like, with all due respect, cry about it. We do listen and take a lot into account, truth be told, when it doesn't come attached to a length of chain and a crowbar. BS! It's like, yes, you don't listen to shit. You don't care. That's why your industry is failing. Failure. However, unsatisfied with this answer, fans continued to inundate Grillo Marxhouse with questions as to why the team chose to make so many changes. In turn, the writer proceeded to dismiss unsatisfied viewers by disingenuously writing them off as nothing but haters. Framing his response as a hypothetical question raised to him by a non-existent fan, Grillo Marxhouse mocked, "I don't understand I don't understand why you block people and call them haters when they come to you with respectful and valid criticism of your work. Now, will you answer the question and please explain to me why I'm right and to think you're a talentless a-hole? What? You know, it's amazing. These are the people that, may I point you back? Joker actor Mark Maron calls right-wing men criticizing Barbie a bunch of effing insecure babies. May I show you, sir, Mr. Mark Moron, may I show you an example of an effing insecure baby? That would be one Javier Grillo Martausch. This, in my view, fits the definition of an effing insecure baby. I don't understand why you block people and call them haters when they come to you with respectful and valid criticism of your work. Now, will you answer the question and please explain to me why I'm right to think you're such a talentless asshole? It's projection, all of it. Do not let these people intimidate you. You know, they do everything they can to deplatform, to silence, to shadow ban any criticism. They call any downvotes, they call any bad reviews of their content review bombing. They call it toxic fandom while they're in the process of invading our franchises like Warhammer and Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering. They are literally in the process of destroying the lore that already exists, that was perfectly fine before they came along. While they're in that process, they are telling us that we're the problem. Do not let these people intimidate you. Do you know why? Because they're thin-skinned. They are thin-skinned. They can feel how wrong they are. And they're projecting. They're projecting their insecurity onto others. In a follow-up tweet, he would elaborate. Here's why I'm not answering. Why did you change that questions? The work has to speak for itself. Oh, well, Mr. Martausch, it does speak for itself. It speaks volumes. If that doesn't land for you, then that's your answer, he concluded. It's no more or less complicated than that. Our reasons are on the screen. Yes, that would certainly not be an example of a effing insecure man baby. Certainly not. Oh, what was it, Mark Moritz? Yeah, a bunch of effing insecure babies. How about another one for you? This from Bounding Into Comics. Mark Hamill admits his campaign to get people to stop tweeting failed. Did you hear about this one? Hamill attempted to lead a boycott of Twitter on Tuesday, August 1st, to send a message to Elon Musk that he needs to look more favorably on Democrats or blue voters. The boycott, this is incredible to me. We are never seeking for Democrats to not be able to tweet. Nobody, this is the amazing thing. All with the normal people of the world, the regular Americans, let's call them, all that we have wanted is equal, just equal participation in the platform. You tweet your left-wing wacko BS, great. We tweet our right-wing wacko BS, great. And we let the people decide. That's all we've ever asked for. But notice how the minute that they lose anything less than total world domination, the minute they're one degree shy of that, they claim they're oppressed. And you need to appreciate blue voter. What appreciation do you require, sir? You are on the platform. You can tweet as much as you want. No one is going to shadow ban you. No one. See, this just means they are insecure. What was it again? Effing insecure babies. The boycott was initially posited by Twitter user, who cares? I am proposing that August 1st be a tweet out day where blue voters take off the day from tweeting. Think of the revenue lost for Twitter X if we did that. Best way to affect change with a billionaire. Ew, gross. is to hit them in the wallet. Retweet if you are with me. The user added in a follow-up, Elon tweets about users and tweets making him money. Ew, money, gross. His advertisers need us. Elon needs us. Let's show him how much. Take August 1st off from Twitter. Send the message that blue voters are a force to be reckoned with. Very secure people. These are very, very secure people. Very smart people. Hamill would take up the boycott in response to Who Cares tweeting, it would be really awesome if August 1st tweet out day was trending. Please retweet and reply. Well, it was a dismal failure. It was a dismal failure. Nobody did it. Nobody cared. And he's just begging the internet. Hamill is just begging the internet. This is very sad. It's very sad. I feel sorry. We shouldn't make fun of the handicapped. Anyway, so Hamill continued to call for his boycott on July 31st, writing, tomorrow is August 1st tweet out day. Join me. He then bizarrely claimed the entire boycott was not political, despite Who Cares making it abundantly clear it was an attempt by blue voters to send some kind of message to Elon Musk. Hamill tweeted, I won't dignify accusations that this is a political statement when in fact, simply an experimental stunt because I'm bored and I just want to see what happens. Oh, yes, they love to do this, right? They love to do this. Everything matters. Everything's important. This is for the salvation of democracy until they lose. And then they say, oh, well, lighten up. What's the big deal? Why do you care so much? I was just doing it for fun. Hamill eventually admitted defeat, albeit he attempted to politicize the boycott's failure by writing, my attempt to make August 1st Tweetless Tuesday was completely obliterated by Trump Indictment Day, which was no less than Neil. Yeah. So he's blaming it on that. And yes. Effing insecure babies. That's what they are. Didn't I sit? Good luck next time, Mark. Good luck. I wish you the best. It's amazing that this is why I say we are in a cultural Game of Thrones with these people because they don't equality is not what they want. Like equality is what currently exists on Twitter. Like that's what currently exists. So in other words, equality is I get to tweet, you get to tweet, we all get to tweet. That's not enough for them. That's not enough for them. No. They unless the people they don't like are disenfranchised, it's not fair. What else do we have on the stack of stuff? So, yes, I just, oh dear. Oh no. Yes, I do have this in the stack of stuff. I must beg your forgiveness, my dear sailors and starnauts, in advance. I must beg your forgiveness. There is something we must discuss, you and I. Here we go. Oh, wait, no, not that one.
Why have you?
Why you only calling us when you got your mamas? One of these days we'll repay you, we'll stay you. Gonna draw your last breath at the end of my plan. Your eternal torture is everything I dream. You know what I mean? Make of us scream!
I have no words. I have no words. Spock eating bacon. I mean, that was a new low. That was like, how bad could this get? I can't. I mean, it's one thing to say Star Trek is dead. I watched this episode before this stream, and I have to tell you, how can I even explain it? It's like they've already taken everything Star Trek was and just absolutely trashed it. Like, just absolutely turned it into garbage. This is them gloating. This is them rubbing salt in the wound and just crowing. They're like, look at what we took from you. This is an offense to the ears. This isn't, look, even if I liked musicals, I don't. But even if I did, this is a horror show. And the worst part of it is there is a contextual plot explanation for why they're all singing. Oh, they found an anomaly, and the anomaly only reflects back like music. It's basically, they're essentially trying to plagiarize the idea of the naked now in Star Trek: The Next Generation when they're near the anomaly and it makes them all drunk. Well, they're kind of just using that explanation. The difference is, in this case, they just said, well, we want a musical episode. It doesn't fit Star Trek. It doesn't fit the characters. It has nothing to do with this world. It's not part of the property. We just want it. So we'll just use Star Trek type stuff to just explain it so we can have this. This is, it's so funny. It's like when Strange New Worlds came out, there was all this buzz about, finally, the fans have been heard. Finally, they're going to do a show that is like the spirit of the original. It's going to be like those original the original series, Next Gen. Kurtzman's figured it out. He's going to do it right this time. Yeah. And guess what? Your captain is a tactician. And all good tacticians know thy enemy, and 1,000 victories will be yours. And that victory was indeed this captain's, because I knew this was fool's gold. I knew this was a mirage, and I refused to watch the show, and I am vindicated. One more time.
Why have you?
Why you only calling us when you got your dramas? One of these days we'll repay you, we'll slay you. Gonna draw your last breath at the end of my glance. Your eternal torture is every Klingon dream. You know what I mean?
Klingons. Current Star Trek, ladies and gentlemen. It's like, it's Star Trek meant a lot to me. When I was in high school, it was like a refuge. And I think it's bad enough that I have to see this garbage on shows like The Voice, where it belongs, or whatever. Why do I need to see this garbage in Star Trek? Star Trek is dead. It is, how far away do you think Star Wars is from that? How long do you think it is before we get Jabba the Hutt with auto-tuned dance numbers? It's not even just that it's a musical. Let's just gather around, my sailors and starnuts, my fellow Trekkies. Just gather around for a second and indulge me. Let's do a musical episode of Star Trek that actually honors Star Trek, and just for the sake of argument, grant that is a thing which is possible. The Klingons have been affected by this anomaly, which is causing them to break out into song. They are Klingons. Gee, has there ever been an episode of Star Trek ever which has explored the idea of music and culture and art in the Klingon in the Klingon society? Ever? Oh, Well, if you've watched Deep Space Nine, then you know the answer to that is all the freaking time. What is Commander Worf's favorite kind of music? Klingon opera. What is Klingon opera? Klingon opera is bombastic, dramatic, kind of symphonic singing about tragedies and the glories and triumphs of war and the loss of brothers in battle. And it's harsh on the ears, and nobody likes it except Klingons and Dax. Those are the only people that like it. So why couldn't they do that? You could have had Klingons break out into Klingon opera, and they could have been reenacting in actual Klingon fashion an ancient battle, an ancient warrior battle, and they're singing all this opera. And that just, do you know what a minimum of freaking effort that takes for me just to elevate this just a little bit so that it's not an absolute slap in the face to everything that Star Trek is? Even as I think about that, even as abhorrent as the idea of a musical Star Trek episode is, at least that would have been honoring the culture of the characters. If they had broke out into Klingon opera and acted in accordance with their own culture, that would have, and it would have at least this is the narcissism. This is the narcissism of Hollywood culture. Notice how all they care about is what they care about. This is what their world is. Dumb, repetitive, cliche choreography, auto-tune singing, hip-hop music. Everything's hip-hop music. This is absolute hatred of Star Trek is what this is. This is not hyperbole. This is not me just being irritated. And this is honest to God. You have to hate Star Trek to do this. Why do I say that? What is my justification for that statement? I'll tell you exactly what it is. The example I just gave you, Klingon opera, that comes from a person who cares about Star Trek. I love Star Trek. I care about all of the lore of the Klingons. And based upon that, I was able to offer up an idea for how you could plausibly do a musical number with Klingons that would not be insulting to them, to the show, to all of the fans, because I care about it. However, if I not only didn't care about Star Trek, but I actively felt that it was nerdy, it was boring. Oh, it's science in space. It's a bunch of anomalies. Who cares? Let's face it, it's for nerds. What it really needs is a bunch of hip-hop, auto-tune dance numbers with backup choreography, with low-rent, B-list Beyonce backup dancers. That's what would make Star Trek cool and relevant. You have to hate Star Trek to believe that. You simply have to.
Now that I did,
it's like a bad music video at like the Staples Center. This is, oh my God. I've never been so, yeah. Wrangler says, I would love to see a Ready Player 2, 3, 4, and 5 with a different member of the High Five taking the lead role in each installment. I cannot comment on that. I don't know enough about Ready Player 1 lore. I only saw the movie. Wasn't bad. It was all right. I thought the villains were a bit one-dimensional for me. I forgot to mention in my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles review, I actually did like the villain. I did like the villain played by Ice Cube. I thought he was intimidating. He was menacing. However, like the rest of this film, even when he's doing dastardly villainous things, it's constantly undermined by this movie being, what can I say? Just actively stupid. Like, it's like Glass Onion. It's like the characters are being deliberately stupid in order for the plot to happen. Perfect example. He's getting the turtles to buy into his plan, and the turtles say, well, what if hypothetically we were not on board with your evil plan? And the villain immediately is like, turns on them and he says, what is the villain's name in this? That would be, I think it was Ice Cube that played him, right? There he is. Yeah, Superfly. Yeah, Ice Cube, Superfly. So Superfly basically says, well, if that were the case, I would feel like I didn't like you that much. And then he becomes all threatening and intimidating. And then they say, no, we're totally down with the plan. No, we love the plan. We're all on board. He's like, oh, well, good. And I'm like, see, you can't have it both ways. You can't have a villain that's menacing, but also a complete, absolute idiot. Why? Because it's funny. It's Marvel Cinematic Universe humor. It's just like, oh, look, they talked their way out of it with no effort and no persuasion whatsoever. So, 4 bars is feeling more generous all the time for this movie, the more I think about it. But the captain will allow it. The captain will allow it. So what am I left with, my dear sailors of Starnuts? What can I offer you? Can you just imagine when Star Wars gets to the level that Star Trek is at right now? We've got like frickin' Ewan McGregor. I know it's pronounced Ewan. Is it Ewan or Ewan? It's Ewan McGregor. When Ewan gets out there and he's doing auto-tune dancing, that's when you know Star Wars has officially hit rock bottom, folks. The Trekkies have now taken the lead in over Star Wars fans in the whose franchise got it worse Olympics. Trekkies have now taken the lead, in my view. So I now have more sympathy for myself than the diehard Star Wars fans. But so what am I left to do? I mean, I got to give you some good news. I can't just leave you on a downer on a Sunday night. You know, we're heading into the week. I want you to tackle that Monday morning with absolute verve and vim. A British tarism, something. What's the lyrics? Yeah, just HMS Pinafore lyrics. Yes. I'll find them for you sometime. HMS Pinafore lyrics. Well, whatever the lyrics are. You just imagine that I sang them to you. And I have to give you that verve and vim to face your week. And so I thought, well, you know, since I don't have a good film to recommend to you, I haven't seen The Meg 2, so I don't have high hopes for it, but it's possible. I mean, I was able to recommend MI7 and some other good films this year, but I came up empty. This week. So I thought, well, let's just talk about things I love. So I rewatched The Matrix recently. And I have to tell you, every time I watch that movie, just the original Matrix film, it is just a perfect film. And I'm watching it and I'm thinking to myself, you know, this was the counterculture of the 90s. You know, that was when the internet was still pretty new. And the idea of like the hacker had sort of rose into the public consciousness as like kind of the ultimate superhero character. You know, there was all these movies coming out at that time about, there's like The Net with Sandra Bullock, and then there was Swordfish, John Travolta, Hugh Jackman. Hackers were just all the rage when The Matrix came out, and it was because they had suddenly in the 80s and the early 90s, it was the Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Sylvester Stallone, the Bruce Willis, that was the kind of action star of that time. Suddenly, in the late 90s, early 2000s, hackers were the new interesting characters. And so The Matrix was particularly notable because it was rooted in all of that kind of cyberpunk, but also that counterculture, rock culture kind of time. And in those days, that was when the left was against the deep state. That was when the left was actually the agents in the film were really there to represent the typical follow orders, believe the government kind of BS. Like, I love that part where Neo's like, how about I give you the finger and you give me my phone call? Like, that's boy, now it's completely reversed. Now Neo is the right-wing bigot who won't help the agents go and find the J6ers that they're looking for. So that's it. So that's a thing. But you know what's funny too? It's like you watch it now and you're like, wow, everything in this movie looks so analog that it actually sort of adds to the unreality of the Matrix. You know, that speech has kind of new meaning now when you watch it, where Agent Smith is saying he's trying to break Morpheus, you know, and he says, I had a revelation that came to me. It came when I was attempting to classify your species. It's when I realized you're not actually mammals. Unlike mammals establish a natural equilibrium with the surrounding environment. You humans do not. Instead, you move to an area and you multiply and you multiply and you multiply until every natural resource is consumed. And then the only way that you can survive is simply to spread to another area. There is another organism on this planet that shares the same pattern. Do you know what it is? A virus. You humans are a plague of this planet. We are the cure. I love that whole scene. It's one of the best scenes ever. And he says something in that. He says, did you know the first Matrix was a paradise where everyone was happy? There was no suffering. It was a disaster. Whole crops were lost. Your primitive cerebrum kept rejecting the program. Kept trying to wake up from it. Yeah, so he basically points out that the Matrix was redesigned to reflect the peak of our civilization, which in this case is the late 90s. And I'm thinking, now you watch the film and there's all these clunky cell phones with buttons on who has buttons on a cell phone? There's all these CRT monitors. What did I say? CRT? Cathode ray. Yeah, that's right. It's also critical race theory. I mean, CRT as in cathode ray tube. There's antiquated concepts like TV repair shops, for example. But at the time that movie came out, like, those cell phones were cool. Like, they were super awesome. That was cutting edge technology. And everything about that it was very topical. Now you watch it and it actually feeds into the story, because it's like the world of the Matrix looks very analog and very unreal now from the perspective of someone. But in that speech, Smith is basically pointing out that once AI was invented and started doing the thinking for us, well, then it became their planet and we're just living in it. And I'm thinking to myself, here we are in 2023. I'm watching this film. And what are we talking about? We're talking about AI art. We're talking about Chat GPT. We're talking about deep fake technology. You can now see videos on YouTube and you are now no longer able to be certain that the video footage you are watching is even real. And we're still at the stage where it's a little bit clunky. You know, it's like Kyle Reese says in Terminator. It's like, the first human looking Terminators, they had rubber skin. They were easy to spot. But now these new ones, they've got real flesh and blood. They sweat, body odor, the whole deal. And I'm thinking we're kind of at like the stage where the AIs are still wearing like rubber skin that's easy to spot. We're only about 5 to 10 years out before it's like sweat, BO, flesh and blood. And it's going to be freaky. And I'm thinking this film takes on new meaning as I watch it now, because I'm thinking there is a chance. Look, I'm not black-pilled about this. I actually think AI is... Look, we invented nuclear weapons in the 1940s and we're still here. That counts for something. We invent AI in the 2020s. Maybe we'll still be here in 70 years. We'll see. Let's now we'll have two Armageddons to sidestep. But I think to myself, like, it is possible that this film will be dead on accurate in its history of the future. At some point in the early 21st century, humanity was united in celebration as we gave birth to AI. And I'm thinking, little too close to home. Perfect hero's journey, perfect romance story between Neo and Trinity. Man, Trinity's a babe. Just a badass. See, we nerds, we hate girl bosses. We hate girl bosses. We sure do. Please, every nerd love Trinity. Like, I love Trinity. Everyone loved Trinity. Zero problems with Trinity. Badass babe. Also, I watched Edge of Tomorrow again, which is with Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt. And this is the movie in which there is a alien species spreading across Europe. Tom Cruise plays a guy dropped into combat against him. He gets killed by one of the aliens. He wakes up the next day, and he wakes up again the previous day. And it's like a Groundhog Day scenario where he keeps reliving the same day. And what's happened is he has somehow managed to absorb the power of the aliens to reset time. And so he has to learn how to defeat them by basically dying every day. It's a fantastic movie. It's one of the few time travel movies I really, really love. I think it's just so brilliantly done. And I'm thinking, man, every once in a while we get a gem. So if you haven't seen The Matrix lately, give it a watch. If you haven't seen Edge of Tomorrow lately, give that a watch. And let us talk about Fu Man Blue's going to be happy. Stargate SG-1. So I've been watching Stargate, and last episode. So let's check in with that. So the last episode that I just watched was Singularity. I'm still in season 1. Damn, there's a lot of episodes. Man, it shows now it's like you get 6 to 10 episodes per season. Now it's like Fu Man Blue SG-1. Woot! Yes. Now we get like 10 episodes. Back then we got 25 episodes a season. So it's like, oh, yeah, well, let's wrap up this. Oh, shoot, I've still got 10 episodes left to go. So anyway, I watched Singularity, and this episode is basically about they go to a planet where SG Team 7 is set. They are setting up a telescope array on a planet to witness an eclipse, which will allow them to get a view of a black hole. Basically, it's a rare opportunity, Earth's first opportunity to view a black hole. So they've set up a telescope. So they're heading over there. SG-1 heads over there to help them complete the project. They're going to take pictures of the black hole. It's going to be awesome. There's some great banter between the characters. There's a great moment when Colonel O'Neill says, he says, well, it's actually the accretion disk that we're going to be looking at. You can't see the black hole. And Daniel's kind of walking ahead. I was like, yeah, exactly. Wait. He turns around very slowly. He's like looking at Jack O'Neill. He's like, did you just say the words accretion disk? And it's such a great, like, the way he performs it, very well done. It's very well done because he's so absolutely, he's just scrutinizing him. And Jack O'Neill's like, yeah, I know stuff. It's like, so the scientist is like, did I just hear you say a technical astrometric term? So I thought that was pretty funny. So they get to the other side of the Stargate, and what do they find other than a field of crops somewhere in the Sacramento Valley? That's kind of what it looked like, but that's neither here nor there. They find a field of crops, and the SG-7 team have all succumbed to a terrible disease that has killed them all. So they've all died from a plague, and this is very bad. This is very bad because it means that the SG-1 team may now be infected. Well, it turns out they're not infected. And they observe all the protocols. They discover it's a bacteria. Fortunately, it's not airborne, so they should be okay. And they find one survivor. So all the indigenous are dead. All of the SG-7 team are dead. But there's one survivor, a little girl. Spoilers. I'm going to spoil the episode. So there's one little girl that survived. And Captain Carter is definitely a Captain Carter episode. I actually think it's her best episode so far. And she kind of forms a connection because this girl has lost her whole family. She's watched everyone she knows and loves die. And so Captain Carter kind of takes her under her wing. They take her back to the base. They've checked out all the contaminants. She's free of contaminants. Everyone's safe. But then the girl starts to fall ill inexplicably, and they have to investigate it. Well, it turns out that there is a device, a Goa'uld device, which has been implanted near her heart, which is made. I take that back. I don't think it was originally there. It grew. Like it was some kind of like technology that was implanted that grew into like a larger mass in her chest or whatever. And it's composed of some of the same metals that are in the Stargate. Well, the problem is once this thing gets to a certain size or something like that, it's going to interact with other elements that are native to Earth. And if it does that, it will create a nuclear explosion that will annihilate the Cheyenne Mountain facility. And this is very bad. And they have basically a ticking clock. They have a ticking clock, which is in a couple of hours, this thing's going to go off. And basically, this little girl is essentially a walking nuclear bomb. And I thought, well, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good plot, I have to say. And so Captain Carter is in this kind of tug of war between her military duty to keep the Stargate and the facility and her comrades safe and keep a stiff upper lip, not allow this to get to her. But at the same time, she's taken a liking. She's got a kind of mother-daughter kind of relationship starting to form with this little girl. And so she's getting very emotional about it. She's really upset about it. Couple of good scenes. I have to say, I'm amazed at what they could do with musical scores on these shows with kind of synthesizers and stuff like that. You forget how small the budget was on these shows back in the day. You take Disney now, they just wipe their ass with money. Disney does. And these shows had to be creative. They had to work with what they had. So I respect that. I do. And they had a lot more episodes to deliver. That's the other thing. They had to deliver a lot of episodes. Fu Man Blue says, laugh my ass off. Jack lets it slip that he's smart sometimes. See, I like that. That's a good point. The character development is very good in this show. And I like that a lot. That Colonel Jack O'Neill, he's smarter than he lets on. By the way, that I have to interrupt myself because that just reminded me. In Star Trek Strange New Worlds, this is the first time I've seen it with Kirk in it. I had to check the IMDb twice to make sure I wasn't misunderstanding this because James Kirk is a character on Strange New Worlds. I promise we'll come back to SG-1 in just a second, but I forgot this in my earlier critique of Star Trek. And I'm thinking they picked such a dweeb to play Captain Kirk. Like he is like, let me just show you this guy. Let me see if I can, do I have this pulled up still? Here we go. Strange New Worlds. Just indulge me for a second here. Yeah, there it is. I got to find. Oh, God, they've got it plastered all over the front page of IMDb, the freaking musical episode. They are so clueless. They think this is what they think is going to sell Trek. They're so excited. We are so excited to show you our musical episode. Jazz hands. I detest Kurtzman and Goldsman like you can't believe. I detest those men. Anyhow, who the Control F. Kirk. There he is. Oh my God. Who thought this guy should play Captain Kirk? I'm just going to show you this guy real quick and then we'll get back to SG-1 here. But I mean, good Lord. This guy does not Does this guy look like, does this have Shatner energy in any way, shape, or form? He looks nothing like him. And let me tell you something too. He has none of the energy, none of the performance. He doesn't sound like Kirk. He doesn't talk like Kirk. He doesn't have the character of Kirk. I mean, he's just like, it's as if they said, find me like a male fashion model who can deliver lines that looks nothing like Kirk and sounds nothing like Shatner, and let's make him Kirk, because screw Trekkies. Because screw him. I mean, what? Guy's a dweeb. Total dweeb. Shouldn't be acting, period. Has no business acting, but has no business singing. Well, maybe he should be singing. Go sing on Broadway. That's where you're good, Mr. Wesley. You have no business being in a Star Trek show. Total dweeb. And I'm thinking, it's one thing for Kirk to just be badly written on the show, but why do this? Why do they do this? I don't know why they insist on drag. You didn't need to put Kirk in it. You've already got Uhura. You've already got Spock. You've got Captain Pike, Anson Mount. Why are they not content with that? Why is it that they're like, we got to go drag out Kirk and put him in it? We don't even like this character. We don't want to. He literally is a moron. Okay, sorry. Let me just, I'm sorry, Fu Man Blue. I'm sorry. Okay. I have to get it. They're in the observation lounge with Kirk. And what is it? Oh, man, I should have wrote this line down. I should have wrote, maybe I did actually. Did I write it down? Tell me I wrote this down. I didn't write it down. What was it? It was like Kirk they're talking about the anomaly that's causing all of the singing. And one of the women, of course, at the table says something very intelligent scientifically, and then Spock confirms it, that this is an anomaly and it's causing the musical thing to happen. And Kirk agrees with that and says something kind of technical. And one of the other characters says, oh, wow, you got that right. And he's like, well, I have my moments sometimes. Sometimes I get this stuff, is basically what he's saying. And that's why you reminded me of that, Fu Man Blue, because you're talking about how Jack O'Neill lets on that he's smarter than they play Kirk like he is a dumb himbo jock. And I'm thinking, this proves to me they have no understanding of the character of Kirk. They have no understanding. They have no understanding of Roddenberry's vision of what a captain in Starfleet even is. A captain in Starfleet is the most qualified officer on the ship always. Captain Kirk, Captain Picard, Captain Sisko, Captain Janeway, Captain Archer, the most qualified, competent people on the ship, period. That is why they're there. That is why they're there. And it's amazing to me that their opinion of the character of Kirk is that he was a dumb jock who just relied on his people for technical problems. This is the guy who beat a Gorn by basically inventing gunpowder on the fly. Just screw Kurtzman. Just screw Kurtzman Trek. I hate it. I hate it. All right. Decorum. There will be order here. There will be order here. So returning to SG-1. Now, where was I? So returning to a well-written science fiction show. So the little girl and Captain Carter are in a pickle, which is the little girl is a ticking nuclear time bomb, and Carter is like trying to figure out a cure, and they're not able to figure one out. Well, in the meanwhile, Teal'c and Colonel Jack O'Neill are on the planet getting ready to observe the eclipse, but instead of seeing the eclipse, they detect a Goa'uld ship in orbit. And your captain, they said, what is that? And I said, I know what that is. That is a starship. And I got very excited. The captain got very excited that there is now officially a starship in the Stargate show. And I am very excited about that. So we saw a Goa'uld starship, and it turns out that this was all part of the plan. This was all part of the plan. which is they leave one survivor who is, of course, an innocent, a child that will be irresistible to the SG-1 team. They'll take pity on her. They'll want to help her. And so they bring her into the base, and it turns out she's been implanted with this ticking time bomb. And the minute she moves through the Stargate, it will detonate, blow up the Stargate, and they will have thus eliminated their enemies. So this was all a gold plot. And so there's a nice little, there's a kind of two-way race. Teal'c and O'Neill are racing to the Stargate to warn them, don't take the girl through the Stargate. Meanwhile, Carter and the girl are racing to get to the Stargate to get her back to this planet before she explodes and destroys Cheyenne Mountain. And just in the nick of time, Colonel Jack O'Neill comes through the Stargate and don't take her through the Stargate. And so kind of the final act of the episode is that they have to find a place where she can safely detonate. And I'm not exactly sure on the science behind this here, but basically the idea is there's a lower, deeper in the mountain, there is an old abandoned nuclear facility that's I guess it's just deeper underground. It's shielded, where if the bomb goes off, it won't wipe out the rest of the facility. And so basically Captain Carter has the unenviable task of taking the unconscious girl down the elevator, down to the depths of this mountain, locking her in a vault, and letting her explode. And it's really quite brilliant. That's as far as I'll go. I'll just say that whole sequence, the emotional struggle with Captain Carter, is brilliant. I'm really beginning to like Carter a lot. I really am beginning to like her character. She's got such a great blend of badassery, but also vulnerability that I think is very endearing. Makes her very likable. So in any case, I really like that character. I think this was a great episode for her. And it was a classic. It was a classic science fiction story, which is, it was kind of the battle between, the needs of the mission and duty and obligation to the cause. And then on the other hand, you have, the emotional piece of it, which is wanting to, save this child. And there's a great moment where she has to make a decision about whether to leave her down there. And it's heart-wrenching. And, this is one of the reasons why I am so in awe of the Mass Effect trilogy, because the Mass Effect trilogy, that would be the video games in which you play as Commander Shepard saving the galaxy on a space adventure. And what I love about that trilogy is that it really does set up missions where there are complicated moral choices like that, where there are actually characters you have to make dramatic decisions where there's no easy answers. And that is really the essence of good science fiction, is there should be moral conundrums in which there is no easy answer and the characters don't expect to feel something. But by the end of the story, you wind up really feeling something for a character that you weren't even expecting. And I think that's really the beauty of what Star Trek is. Star Trek ostensibly is about exploring the galaxy, exploring the stars, seeking out new life and new civilizations. And really what it winds up being is an exploration of the human soul. And I think that is the true essence of science fiction. That is what Star Trek is about. That is what I would argue Star Wars is about. That is what I would argue Stargate SG-1 is about. It is about exploring the human soul. Now, why is it necessary to explore the human soul? Because we're never going to get all the answers. Greek philosophers 2,000, 3,000 years ago couldn't solve these questions, and we cannot solve them today either. It's what are called divergent problems, problems that will always be with us, questions that will always lack an answer. And yet, we will always devote our lives to seeking the answers. Why are we here? What is the meaning of life? Science fiction uses exploration of space, scientific phenomena to explore these ideas. That is the vehicle that allows us to come to know ourselves as people. That's what is so beautiful about episodic science fiction storytelling. Doctor Who. That's another great example of a show that is about exploring the human soul through the idea of exploring the timeline, right? And exploring other worlds. Now, why am I bringing this up? I am bringing this up because this is what is utterly lacking in Kurtzman Trek. This is why this garbage with the Klingons singing on the bridge is so offensive to me. Because to me, they are not exploring the human soul. They are doing a dopey musical because they want to. Now, why is that? Well, you see, the reason that you would explore the human soul is because you have questions. You have questions in yourself, in your own soul, about what is the meaning of life? Why are we here? How do we solve these? Where has humanity been and where are we going? What is our true destiny? Is it possible for us to overcome our baser instincts and become a more civilized and enlightened people? Is it possible for us to coexist with artificial intelligence? And if we did, what would it mean about the value of our own humanity? What defines us as humans? Now, in order to ask these questions, you have to have these questions. And to have these questions, you have to believe that there are things that you do not know. This is why this is why woke writers are such shit. Because they don't have these questions. They don't have questions. Why? Because they're not curious. They are fundamentalists. Fundamentalists are people who believe they already have all the answers. All the answers are there. Everything that needs to be known is known. There's no need for further question seeking. They have all the answers. Now, the most common place to find fundamentalists historically is typically in religion. What we would call religious extremists. Al-Qaeda, for example. That would be an example of fundamentalists. But there are other types of fundamentalists, such as National Socialists, such as Soviet communists. Those are also fundamentalists. There's fundamentalists such as, David Koresh, Charles Manson, although that's probably more of just a wacko than a fundamentalist. But you get my point. Cultists, essentially, is what I'm saying. These are people who believe that they have all the answers and no further research into the human soul is necessary. The woke mind virus, the far leftist wackos, to put it as simply as possible, identity politics driven communists are just far left wackos, what I call the wokies, who believe in a totalitarian system of suppressing all dissent from their worldview, who themselves are part of a kind of secular religion. They are fundamentalists. They are going back to basics, and the basics are equity, diversity, and inclusion. And self-affirmation, feeling accepted, and belonging. That is the answer to all the questions humanity ever needed. We have all the answers. They are here. The only problem we have is eliminating the resistance from all the people who just haven't figured it out yet, all of the bigots. So the fundamentalist is fueled by the perceived enemy. The fundamentalist is, the Nazis were fueled by the perceived enemy of communists, Jews, lesser races. The Soviets were fueled by the perceived enemy of the bourgeoisie. And anyone who is opposed to communist beliefs, anyone. So the wokies consider their enemies anyone that is part of the patriarchy, anyone that is part of the white supremes, MAGA supporters, Brexit people. Ew, gross. So why am I saying? Because what I'm getting at is this is why they're not capable of writing good science fiction, because good science fiction is written by people who have questions about humanity, who have questions about the human soul, who recognize that we are complicated human beings and that neither our great triumphs or our worst failures and failings as people define us, because we're not that simple. And only people who view the world through the lens of The only thing necessary to solve all the problems of humanity is to eliminate anyone and everyone who disagrees with diversity, representation, equity, and inclusion. And so it is not necessary for them to explore anything when they write, this garbage, this absolute horror show. That is not science fiction. That is fundamentalist propaganda, which takes great pleasure and delight, great schadenfreude in offending and insulting people like your dear captain and all of you who have made Star Trek such a beautiful and beloved exploration of the human soul that it used to be. And so the captain will say, a moment of silence, if you would doff your caps, a moment of silence for the death of Star Trek. Thank you. Thank you, my dear crew. And 3 cheers for Stargate SG-1. Hip, hip. Hooray! Hip, hip. Hooray! Hip, hip. Hooray. And Fu Man Blue with a $5 super chat. Why, Fu Man Blue, thank you. Thank you so much, sir. I do appreciate it. He says, I am so happy that you're enjoying SG-1. Thanks again for taking the time to talk about it. Put them on a thumbnail and clip this portion. Big hits, I bet. That's a good idea. You know, if I I need some time in my life. If I had some time. Well, I'm working on it. But yeah, that's a good idea. I should, I could probably do a couple of retro reviews. That's what I'm thinking about, because I literally am at my wit's end. You know, I said it last live stream. I did not start this channel to only bitch about things, I swear. Now, look, I do enjoy bitching. Full disclosure, I do enjoy bitching about things I don't like. I'm not trying to, I did not found it to be the 24/7 positivity channel either. I enjoy a good bellyache as much as the next guy. But that being said, my idea was I'll bring you good reviews and I'll bring you bad reviews and I'll let you decide, and and we'll talk about the things I like and the things I don't like, and that's kind of my idea. And it's like all I have to talk about these days are things I don't like. So what I'm thinking about is I might, to balance things out, there must be balance in the universe. I'm kind of going through some older, like SG-1, but I'm also going through older films, and I'm thinking I want to do some retro reviews. So let me know what you think about that. I kind of did a little bit of that with The Matrix, which honestly, The Matrix is so iconic at this point. It's kind of hard to even do that, because it's like, how do you review a film that has taken on a kind of life of its own in one's consciousness? But so anyway, you are welcome, Fu Man Blue. Thank you for your super chat, Captain. Salute. I gotta go the full. I gotta do there we go. I gotta get it off the screen. I don't want any unfortunate clips on the internet there. So Wrangler said, I might accept the musical one-off if it started by saying this episode was just for fun and not to be considered canon. You know, I wouldn't. I wouldn't. That would not placate me, because the whole point is, I mentioned this earlier. Disney has lost the understanding of proper tone. They can't set a proper tone for their movies anymore. It's weird. It's all over the place. Like Little Mermaid had this dark, dingy atmosphere the whole movie. And the Haunted Mansion, they're billing it as a family-friendly horror movie. It's not. It's not even a ghost story. I don't know what the hell it is, quite frankly. It looks like, it looks like an advertisement for Party City, to be quite honest with you. It looks like an advertisement for Party City. It does not look like a movie to me. And this is my point. And so to say that we're going to do a musical episode of Star Trek is not that. That's not what it is. This has never been what it is. There was the episode in Star Trek Next Generation, Season 1, The Naked Now. It's a famous episode in which they're near an anomaly and everyone is getting drunk, but nobody's drinking. And it turns out that the anomaly creates drunkenness, the same effect as drunkenness in the crew. And so Tasha Yar, she gets a little tipsy, and her and Data have a fling. And so it's just, it was Data's one good night on the ship. And which, it's kind of charming too, because Data always had a soft spot in his heart for Tasha Yar, because, she was like his first love before he even was capable of that. And the difference, though, is that, yes, was that episode kind of written to be fun and be like, oh, what if the crew of the Enterprise got drunk? Well, but it did not abandon the whole premise of the show. The whole premise of the show was that these are officers who are professionals, who are here to do a job in a real future with a real mission in which they are there to explore the stars. The whole point of them being drunk as being a novelty in the show is that it's so against the tone of the show. It literally is a crisis. It is the crisis of the episode. These are the professionals running the ship and they're all drunk. That is a nightmare scenario. So the episode does not treat it as though this is a fun situation. Yes, there's levity. Yes, there's comedic value, but the tone of the episode is still that this is a crisis that is threatening the lives of the entire crew and must be resolved. That is, and unfortunately, Wesley Crusher is like the one that's got to resolve it, if I recall. And so it's kind of a Wesley episode. But anyway, the point is the show did not abandon all sensibility. It did not abandon its maturity as a show. It was using that as the backdrop for what if all these professional people suddenly got drunk and couldn't run the ship? Like, that's the whole point. This episode is not, what if all the crew suddenly had to break out in song? And I would not be forgiving of them saying, well, just for fun, we're going to abandon the tone and seriousness of the show just to do something dopey and fun. Go do that with Barbie. Go do that with whatever dumb CW show you've written. That's where that shit belongs, in my opinion. It doesn't belong in Star Trek, ever. However, if I were to be as absolutely charitable as possible to the writers and say, we just really want to do a musical episode and we're contractually obligated to do it, Captain Garrett, please help us do this in a way that's not absolutely puke your guts out offensive. I'm like, under duress, I will help you. Under duress, under protest, the captain will allow this, and I will help you. And here's what we're going to do. This is absolutely going to be canon. This is absolutely going to be a serious episode. The crisis of the episode is going to be that this is a musical episode. And what I would do is I would say every single musical number must be in character for the character, the culture from which that character comes from, and we should have musical numbers that are somewhat uncomfortable for the audience to watch, meaning the Klingon opera. We should see the Klingons and it should seem jarring and strange to us, because it's an alien's idea of what a musical number would be. And, and that could actually have some natural comedy to it. There would be the kind of odd couples thing. Like what does a Vulcan breaking into song look like? That could be interesting. How about, Spock spends the whole episode doing like, Vulcan meditative chanting. Like they can't get him out of it. He's just home, and he's doing Vulcan meditative chanting. Now that could work. And you know what? I would say the characters that say have an affinity for 20th century music. Okay, we can do one hip hop number and we can call it historical. Yeah, but it would have to be justified. I would expect that there had already been episodes where this character, like Tom Paris, was obsessed with the 20th century. There have already been episodes where this character's in the holodecks singing hip hop before this episode. Not that I'm endorsing that, but just you get what I'm saying. And And we better damn well, like Riker would be singing jazz, right? If you know Riker's character, he would be doing jazz. And the Wokies love jazz. So, fine. So anyway, I'm just saying, Wrangler, I take your point. For me, it's like, I have no forgiveness in my heart. I just have none. I have none for Akiva Goldsman and Kurtzman. They are a plague. They're a plague to all writing, frankly. They are the most freaking malicious writers in all of Hollywood. That's saying something, because David Weiss and David Benioff and Dan Weiss, whatever, David and Dan, the idiots that ruined Game of Thrones, they're the second worst writers in all of Hollywood, in my view. So anyway, Fu Man Blue says the days of 100th episodes had passed, I think. Quote, yeah, I'd like to order a large white Supreme with nothing on it, please. 30 minutes. Okay, great. Hooray. Oh, yes. Thanks for the hooray, Fu Man Blue. I appreciate it. I appreciate the crew's spirit. I have a spirited crew. Wrangler says, now I want pizza. Now I do too. Wrangler says, yeah, I schedule and post clips from Wing It and schedule them throughout the week, but it is time consuming. Indeed it is. And also goes on to say, I miss real Star Trek. Maybe one day the fictional intergalactic community I'm building will be able to scratch some of those itches. Yes. Keep me updated on that, Wrangler. Your captain is also working on a fictional universe, and perhaps someday, who knows, maybe some collaboration is possible. Music by Klingons and catering by Neelix. Oh, no. Oh, no. There's a good example. Neelix was a character that annoyed the hell out of me for the first couple seasons of Voyager. And the funny thing, though, is that he kind of went on this character journey. And I think what helped is that he also annoyed the other characters. Like the other characters on the ship were deeply annoyed by Neelix. Oh, Neelix, why did you feed me that garbage? And I really liked Tuvok. Tuvok really didn't like Neelix, because it would have been out of character for Tuvok to say, it's important to me that you feel validated, Mr. Neelix, in your identity, and that you speak your truth. It's like, oh, it's like, no, Tuvok is a jerk, and he doesn't like Neelix. That's just how it is. But over the course of the series, Neelix slowly but surely started to prove himself. And then he actually started to mature as a character. And by the end of the series, he actually had earned a lot of the credentials that he was given on the ship. He had actually kind of earned, because there were a lot of episodes where the crew was in a crisis and Neelix would be helping them triage supplies. The replicators would be down and Neelix would be cooking for them. There would be a tense diplomatic negotiation and Neelix would be busting his ass to make it work so that he didn't fail Captain Janeway. And then by the end of the series, he has just barely kind of wormed his way in with Tuvok. And there is a moment in the third to last episode where Neelix is leaving Voyager for good. And he's going to live with a group of Talaxians that he has helped save their colony. It's a great episode. It's called Homestead, I believe. And Neelix announces he's leaving Voyager, and he's getting ready to depart the ship. And I get chills every time I see this scene. And he's walking down to the airlock, and suddenly, and the camera's on him, right? The camera is doing a tracking shot, just looking at his face. So you don't see what's happening. You just see his reaction to it. And he has this kind of, surprised look on his face. And then the camera stays with him as he starts walking. He continues down the corridor. And then what comes into the frame is that on either side of the corridor, the entire crew is assembled to see him off. And they're standing at attention for him. And they literally track. It's a beautiful tracking shot. They just track him all the way down the corridor, the whole crew, until he gets all the way to the senior staff. And of course, the senior staff and Captain Janeway herself in dress uniforms are standing next to the airlock. And they wish him well. He's been promoted to a Federation ambassador by Janeway and Starfleet Command. And they're saying goodbye. And at the beginning of the episode, Neelix had been quite annoying, and he was trying to get Tuvok to dance, and Tuvok is like, Vulcans do not dance, and he wouldn't dance for Neelix. Well, then as Neelix is about to step onto the airlock, Tuvok says, "Mr. Neelix," and Neelix looks at him, and Tuvok glances down at his feet, and he just does a very slight moving his feet like he's dancing motion, and then he says, "Live long and prosper." And Neelix just is speechless, and I mean, your captain gets allergies during that scene, apropos of nothing. Anyway, allergies which affect my tear ducts, which is of course not at all related to an emotional response. Now, and I love that scene because it's a perfect ending to his character. He earned the friendship of the crew. He earned their respect over years, starting as a scavenger. And why do I bring that up? I bring that up because you can have characters that are slightly annoying, that want the characters to sing and dance and do dopey things. But if you do it in a way that's grounded and that honors the fact that other characters don't get along with them, they have friction, and they have to earn their success as a character, it can work. It really can work. And you can have it. And Neelix had a reason for being the way he was. He started out as a scavenger and a civilian, and he didn't know anything about Starfleet protocol. And so in the first couple seasons, he was kind of a dope. He didn't understand decorum or discipline. He often would question Janeway's orders to her face, and she'd usually give him a good dressing down. By the end of the series, he has become one of the most professional officers on the ship. He's been through battle. He has been through crises. He's learned to handle himself, and the whole crew respects him. Kurtzman and Goldsman are flat incapable of writing a character like that. Incapable. So anyway, Wrangler says, "I'm finishing the second book now, but book 3 is where she starts venturing into space." Awesome. I love it. Wrangler, what's the name of your series? Let me know in the chat. Let me know in the comments in case I miss it, because I'm about to wrap this thing up. I'll take your captain. We'll take a look. And Wrangler said, "I loved him as a Ferengi." Did the actor who played Neelix play a Ferengi once? Oh, you know what? It might have been the episode where... No, there's an episode where he becomes a Klingon. It's the Killing Game, I believe, when the Hirogen are making them pretend to be other characters. Anywho, Star Trek Deep... This could be the Star Trek Deep Lore channel if I wanted. Fu Man Blue says, "Yeah, that gave me goosebumps hearing the retelling. Neelix made me feel the same. Hate to love. I was crushed when he left." Yes. And it's, like I said, earned. Every bit of that was earned. He was an annoying character in the first couple seasons. By the end of it, moved me to tears. His departure. By the way, part of what made that scene so effective is that it was rooted in actual maritime traditions. It was rooted in a military chain of command. It was rooted in the concepts of what would it take for an entire ship to be so moved by the departure of a character that they would want to assemble to honor that character. That's rooted in like serious storytelling, not this running around, musical dance numbers garbage in Kurtzman Trek. It's like Robert Meyer Burnett summed it up perfectly. The problem with modern Trek is these are not professionals. These are not professionals that are good at their job. These are children. These are children running around a spaceship. I was watching this episode, and Uhura is sort of voiceover narrating the beginning of the episode, and she's doing like a log or something, and she's talking about how the ship is having all these problems, and she's having to reroute all the communications. Even the way she speaks grates on me, the actress who plays her, because she's talking in this really excited way, and the ship is having all these problems, and so I am routing all the communications because that's what I'm good at. And I'm like, this is how children talk. This is how freaking children who are, playing with their dollhouses or playing games in the yard, this is how they talk. This is not how military trained professionals speak. And I've said this before. Star Trek is about optimism. It is about making you feel lighter. And I think that a lot of fans' objections to Kurtzman Trek have been, this is dark, it's dystopian, it's miserable. Star Trek is supposed to be optimistic and uplifting. And it's like trying to explain it to Eric Cartman. It's like trying to explain to Eric Cartman why Star Trek is so uplifting and inspiring to people is what it's like trying to explain it to Kurtzman and Goldsman, because they don't understand that. And so they think that a optimistic and happy Federation means that all of the characters are happy all the time, that the characters are just, super excited all the time. And it's like, no, that's not optimism, you idiots. Optimism is, we are facing life and death. The whole crew is facing annihilation from an evil alien, but they pull together. They remember their jobs. Their training kicks in. They help each other because they're friends and their colleagues and their family. And at the end of the day, they prevail because they stick to their principles through adversity. And they come out the other side with a lesson learned, stronger for the experience. That is optimism. Not acting like you're happy all the time. Some of the best episodes of Star Trek are about the characters being unhappy. One of my favorite Voyager episodes was the episode Night, when Janeway has locked herself in the cabin because they're passing through an area where there's no stars, and she feels like she's failed her crew, and so she's actually kind of gone into a depression. And that was like kind of one of the most interesting episodes because she's grappling with her mistake of stranding them in the Delta Quadrant. She's feeling regret. Another great episode. There's a Deep Space Nine episode that's one of my all-time favorite episodes. It's right before the Dominion War really kicks off. And it's the episode where Sisko, O'Brien, they're all sort of depressed and miserable. And everyone on Deep Space Nine is unhappy, basically. Their jobs are just, O'Brien's got too much work to do and not enough time to do it. Sisko is feeling down in the dumps because the Dominion's on the rise and they're winning diplomatically, and he's worried about it. Everybody's on edge because war is about to break out. And Jake Sisko and Nog get the idea. Well, Jake really gets the idea, but he pulls Nog into it, which is there is this auction in which a Willie Mays baseball card is up for sale. And he thinks, man, if I could get that card, it would make my dad so happy. But he's like, but how am I going to get it? I need money to get it. I might be crisscrossing two episodes because I feel like there was another episode with the Great River. Do you remember the episode where Nog, it was the Great Material Continuum, and Nog is doing all this trading? I think it was that episode. Also, Fuman Blue said, hail in the Rumble chat. Thank you, Fuman Blue. I appreciate that. Hail to the Rumble chat. One day there will be a bustling Rumble chat. Mark my words. I might be crisscrossing a couple episodes. But anyway, the thrust of the episode is, I think this is the one. I think it's Faith, Treachery, and the Great River, I think is the name of the episode. And, it starts out with all of the Deep Space Nine characters are unhappy, but through the course of like Nog and Jake making all these trades and all these schemes and kind of winding up doing a favor for every person on Deep Space Nine, by the end of the episode, Sisko does this captain's log where he's talking about how, like, for some reason, everyone on this station who was down in the dumps yesterday, it's like a fresh air has just come through the station and everyone's happy. And he can't figure out what it is. And then it ends with his son presenting him the Willie Mays card and they hug. And it's a great episode. It's just such a great episode. And I think that is what Star Trek is. That is what it is. Kurtzman. Like, they just can't possibly understand that. They can't possibly understand that that is optimism. That is what optimism is. It's that even when things are hard, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Even when you're having a bad day, a kind gift can turn everything around. Not Michael Burnham having a crying session. You are the most amazing person I've ever been in Starfleet with since the last person I cried about. Yeah, no, Michael, you're the best. You're the most wonderful person in Star Trek. You're so inspiring. Oh, God. STD is the worst. It is the worst. Second, well, no, it's not. Picard is the worst. Seasons 1 and 2, that is. Anywho. Did we get... Anyway. Yes, Wrangler says, I hope you enjoy the adventure. What? Where's the... I need the name. Wrangler. You gotta... Where's the name of the book? Gotta know. Booman Blue has it. Wrangler says, like Kirk said in Generations, don't tell me. Tuesday. I liked that. I always liked that. I thought that was a funny part of the movie. I like Generations. It's... Yes, it had... Yes. All of its flaws. Totally acknowledge all of its flaws. But Fu Man Blue says, I heard this was amazing. The first Law trilogy, it came out yesterday. So I shouted out the Joe Abercrombie's first Law trilogy on the last stream because it's a book series I read. It's actually pretty old now. It's like 10 years ago at least, I think. Really great, sort of grounded, I would say low to middle fantasy. I wouldn't call it like true low fantasy because there is magic in it, but it's very grounded magic. It's very like magic is deadly, it's dangerous, and it's shocking in this universe when you see it. It's great. But it's a great series, and the readers of Joe Abercrombie refer to him as Lord Grimdark. And I wouldn't say he's as grimdark as R.R. Martin, but he's close. And it's mostly because he loves to kind of, he actually is able to subvert character archetypes, but in an actually constructive way, which is he builds a character. Honest to God, I learn from him every time I read his books because he writes characters that have absolute complexity like you can't believe. Because there's what you know of the character, there's what you think you know of the character, and then there's what you don't even know you don't know about the character that's below the surface that is just waiting to come up by the end of the book. And it's characters in his stories surprise you in the most delightful ways. I have to tell you, it is. And it's usually because as they experience the events that they go through in his books, it just transforms them as a character. They learn what they're made of. And sometimes they learn that they're a coward. And sometimes they learn that they weren't a coward and they're actually a hero. It's brilliant. He's just a great, great writer. So anyway, first Law trilogy. And then he had 3 anthology books, Red Country, Best Served Cold, and The Heroes. While I admire it for its achievement, I don't actually like The Heroes. That's his one book that I did not enjoy. I found it quite boring because he spent so much of it head hopping to different characters. I just couldn't get into it. But Red Country, one of the most phenomenal books I've ever read. I mean, but here's the deal. You have to read the first Law trilogy first because the anthology ones, you won't understand them. A lot of the lore and the references he's making, you won't get unless you've read the first Law trilogy. Then, after you've read the first Law trilogy and the anthology books, then you got to read his newest trilogy, which is The Age of Madness, which wasn't quite as good as the other ones. Still pretty damn good, though. And a couple of characters in it that are really good. And yeah, so I look forward to anything from Lord Grimdark. Wrangler says, Haley Star Bad Kitty. Okay, Haley Star Bad Kitty is the book. Is it on Amazon? Let me take a look here. Well, oh, there we go. Cool. Well, we will check it out. Check it out. So Wrangler said, I haven't heard of the first Law trilogy. What is it about? So I would say, so it's about a roughly Renaissance kind of medieval. No. It's a Renaissance fantasy world. And it's basically about it's an ensemble of characters. It's essentially about a barbarian, a wizard, and an inquisitor torturer who become embroiled in a kind of a Game of Thrones that's going on in this kingdom. But basically, there is a wizard that shows up named Baez to this kingdom, which is kind of going through a political upheaval, and he needs a magical relic in order to stop an invasion from an enemy army known as the Eaters. And essentially it's an ensemble cast. So there's a lot of different characters, and they all kind of have a story, and all their stories intertwine by the end. And that's basically as much as I'll tell you about it. But that's pretty much what I'll tell you about it. And it's just basically a kind of Game of Thrones, but with a wizard who is looking to stop an invading army with a magical relic thrown in the mix. And the cool thing about it is that under the constitution of this kingdom, the wizard Baez has a permanent member. He is a permanent member of the small council. So he's basically a member of this council that basically runs the country. However, he essentially lives for hundreds of years, and his seat on the council is always empty. So he's been gone for so long, for so many centuries, that basically they don't think he really exists. They think that he's just a myth and that the chair is just ceremonial. He has the chair, but he's never there. So they think he's a myth and it's a ceremonial, like our ancestors just made it up. Well, then one day he shows up. He shows up to the capital city. He says, "Yes, I am the wizard Baez. I am here to take my seat on the council, as is my right." And what's great about it is that basically the nobles all think he's full of shit. They're like, who is this charlatan who has shown up on our doorstep and is, but they're also kind of in a bind because technically there's nothing obvious to contradict the authenticity. So in theory, they can't really prove that he's not Baez. So what they're trying to do is just placate him and keep him out of the way while they disprove that he's really Baez. And so they put their best inquisitor, my favorite character, Inquisitor Glocta, on the case. And he is this guy who's been tortured until he's basically just a mutilated gimp. And now he tortures people for a living for the king. And his job is to suss out, Baez's real identity and prove he's not really a wizard. And so there's this great, as the reader, you're not actually sure how true Baez is. You kind of know Baez really is who he says he is, but you're also not quite sure how much of what he's saying is true. And so it's quite fun to watch the nobles try and disprove he's Baez and then to see what Baez does about it. And that's as much as I'll tell you. And so there's this kind of Game of Thrones going on. It's a grounded Renaissance world with some magic in it. It is the battle scenes are excellent. The characters are deep, rich, nuanced. He writes war like nobody. This guy writes warfare like I've never read before. It is so good. He is so good at writing sword fights. He is so good at writing the emotions and the visceral reality of warfare. He's good at writing magic warfare, I think, which sometimes really bores me in books. If magic is not done right, I don't like it. He writes magic like it's a military, like it's an ordnance, like it's an ordnance weapon. It's so good. And so anyhow, there you go. So check out the First Law trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. I haven't been reading as avidly lately as I wish I would. It's hard. I'm very picky. I'm very picky with novels. So anywho, well, my dear sailors and Starnauts, I think I've about covered the whole stack of stuff. I think I went through the whole darn thing. Actually, you know what? One last thing. So we talked about, we talked about the Haunted Mansion and how it's a total failure and Disney is just going completely under. And my theory is that Disney is the worst thing possible has just happened to Disney, which is Barbie, which is a totally woke movie, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem, which is I mean, I wouldn't call it woke exactly, but it's definitely suffering from the same narcissistic moral zeitgeist that the rest of us are living under these days. And I think that Disney, seeing the success of these films, is going to be affirmed in their belief that wokeness is not their problem. And I actually disagree. See, I think the reason that Barbie is a success, even though it is a depressing intersectional feminist nightmare, is that it's made for its correct audience. It's made for that audience, and that's the audience that's going to see it, and that's why it's successful. And so I think this just proves that Chris Gore over at Film Threat had the best advice possible for Disney. And so I thought I would just share it with you. So we will just, yes, here we go.
Me there. All right, but let's get right into it. A freaking IKEA chair. So Bob Iger had his big company speech. Was a town hall at Disney. They even published video of it. I watched some of the video, and no surprise, Bob Iger on nearly every question skirted the topic. He was asked
pre-prepared question
and pre-prepared answer, and he deflected like any great politician would. He gave nothing. Bob Iger stated when asked about the Don't Say Gay bill or would Disney get political, he just sort of he talked his way out of that one. When asked about, the content of Disney, he made the most brilliant statement ever, which is basically a statement that could be read two ways. He said,
"This is such a great
always
point.
going to be able to make everybody happy." So here's people saying, "Yeah, we're not going to be able to make everybody happy. I'm so tired of this woke stuff. I'm really glad that Bob Iger said that." And then someone else on the other side of that is like, "Yeah, I'm so glad we're just not going to be able to make everybody happy. We're going to keep putting all this other content in, and it's not going to make people happy." He literally made a statement that made everybody happy. And I still am arguing. I did another video on this. They need to consider, to test the marketplace, spin off another brand that is effectively their woke/gay brand, and just make honestly gay content, not stuff where you're trying to shoehorn it in under the surface, or what Dante James calls queer baiting, where they have a character and they just tell you that character is gay, but then nothing about that character being gay matters. It's irrelevant to the story. It makes no difference whether you know the character is gay or not. In fact, I don't need to know the sexual orientation of every character that's on screen. I think they did that in one of the recent Jurassic World movies. They just were like, "Oh, these characters are gay," yet being gay meant nothing. It just meant nothing. That's called queer baiting. When you kind of shoehorn that in to placate the audience.
So hat tip Film Threat, hat tip Chris Gore, Alan Ng, two of my favorite film reviewers. And so this is his point, right? They need to stop doing this. Well, I'm going to skip ahead to kind of his main suggestion for Disney, which I agree with.
Not be making those choices for me, for my kids. Stop. Spin off this label. And then the other thing that you can do, it's my second piece of advice, scale all of this content to the audience. And by that, I mean budget-wise. Budget-wise, you should plan a budget that fits the size of the audience. And that's going to take a little bit of experimentation, a little bit of success, and a little bit of failure. You're going to have to succeed and fail a little bit. Had they made Strange World for a much smaller budget, say under 10 million, it would have made money. It would have made money. So I really have a problem with, you make a movie for, the budget for Strange World has been reported from between 120 million and 180 million. Either way, it's going to lose over 100 million because of marketing. But I feel the advantage of spinning off a separate label is one, it gives parents, that's the reason the rating system was created. The rating system, you know, they rarely.
So yeah, check out Film Threat, Gore Rant, Disney Sparkle if you want to see the rest of the video. But that's his basic point, right? Is like what they should do is stop shoving all this woke bullshit into their main Disney brand, create a spin-off, which I think is a pretty brilliant idea. Disney Sparkle, gay it up. Just all the gay stuff, put it all in there, all the woke stuff, Proud Family, throw it all in there. And make it on appropriately scaled budgets. So in other words, earn your success. So in other words, do smaller films scaled to that audience, let it succeed on its own merits with that audience, and let it live in that brand. And I think that is exactly what they need to do. And you know, with Barbie, the reason Barbie is the incredible success it is because it effectively did that. It is on brand for what it is. Barbie is all about pandering to women, pandering to mothers and daughters. I don't mean that in a negative way, by the way. It's just the best word I could think of. But let me rephrase it by appealing to women, appealing to mothers and daughters. I did not mean that pejoratively. They are appealing to that audience because that is the audience it is for. They are tilting the message of the film towards the female subjective experience, which again, I am fine with that. I am totally fine with that. I say that with no reservation whatsoever. Everybody should have something that's made for them. I mean this. I think fathers and sons should have their movie. Husbands and wives should have their date night movie. Mothers and daughters should have their, you know, girl coming of age movie that they can go see together. You know, the LGB crowd, they should have the movies where it's all gayed up for them. And that's fine. But for the big tent pole brands, they should have in mind that this is for a broad audience. And therefore, we should be appealing to that audience, which is broadly, if we're talking Marvel Cinematic Universe, that should tilt toward a broadly average male audience. That is what it should be tilting for. And so Barbie is a smash success because it is tilting exactly where it now. I think it tilted way too far into mean-spirited feminism that is frankly completely incoherent and unhinged and depressing. So I think it went way too far and it's way too extreme. But that I say that as an outsider who could give a shit. I could just give a shit, like how depressing or miserable that movie is. They're welcome to it. You know, enjoy it. Enjoy your ending with the gynecological exam. I'm fine with that. That's what you want. That's what you want. But that's my point. They made it for the right audience. Disney will never learn this lesson. They will never understand that this is all they have to do. Just make it for the right audience, and it's fine. You know, if they did this with Star Wars, you know, if they could have done this with Star Wars properly. They could have had your full-blown, you know, Anakin Obi-Wan series, right? They could have had it, and it could have just been all for the fans of Luke Skywalker, all for the fans of Revenge of the Sith, and just tilt into that audience. Give that audience what they want. And then you can have your Star Wars acolyte that is tilting toward the female audience, and let those different shows, you know, succeed or fail on their own merits. Scale it appropriately. Recognize that Star Wars is a male brand. It's not as popular with women as with men. So if we're going to make the girl boss Star Wars acolyte, it'll have a lower budget. We'll start it with, you know, a shorter run of episodes, and we'll just focus on capturing that audience, and we'll just lean into that with the marketing. We'll, you know, just like Barbie did, not the fan baiting, not the, oh, why do you toxic man babies hate that there's female Jedi? Drop that bullshit and just have it appeal to the female Star Wars fan. And once it gets a little success, then you can have another season of it. But they can't do this. And do you know why they can't do it? Because they're arrogant. Because of their hubris. And because, quite frankly, as I have said before, they are fundamentalists. fundamentalists are not curious. Fundamentalists already have the answers. In fact, I wonder if I could find this quote for you real quick, which would be, I believe it was in The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. Excellent, excellent book for artists, writers, entrepreneurs. I think I have this in my library, and if I do, I don't think I have it in my library. Let me... Okay, cool. I think yes, I think I can find this. If I'm thinking of the right thing, I will read you this quote. Yes, come on, let's all right. Well, I can't find it. I'll find it for you another time then. But anyway, so there is this quote in The War of Art, and he's basically talking about how one of the major obstacles writers face is resistance. And resistance is this natural force of the universe you encounter whenever you try to go from a lower state of existence to a higher one. And art is the pursuit of that state. And so therefore, when you set out to write a novel, for example, what you are going to experience is resistance, which is in the form of doubt, in the form of perfectionism, procrastination, self-criticism, being distracted, all those sorts of things. Watching, binge watching shows, all that sort of thing. And resistance is one hell of an implacable alien. As he puts it, every writer, every creative has to respect resistance the way that Ripley respects the alien. It is there to stop you from doing your work. And it defeats more a would-be artist than it doesn't. It usually wins. It claims a lot of bodies. And he honestly believes that Hitler is an example of this. And he said, because what happens is resistance defeats the artist. And what happens is a defeated artist will sometimes become a fundamentalist. They will begin to believe that the answers are not out there, because art is about seeking answers. The fundamentalists will believe we already had all the answers back then, and we just need to rediscover them. Hence my holy book is correct, and all enemies must be put down, right? And so his example of this, and it's a little tongue-in-cheek, he's not being like dead on literal about it, but he's just saying, Hitler was a failed artist. He couldn't get his paintings to sell. And what happened? He became a radical, crazy fundamentalist and a genocidal maniac. And so anyway, that is a long way of saying that now, I'm not making a direct comparison to that extreme of a fundamentalist, but what I am saying is the woke mind virus is creating fundamentalists, and fundamentalists already think they have the answers. They're not curious to find new ones. And so they will not learn this lesson. They will not learn that if they just tailored their content, their bullshit content to a better, if they would just make the Haunted Mansion, for 50 million instead of 150 million, they wouldn't have these giant failures all the time. That they are such lazy. It's amazing that they are lazy, greedy, and incompetent, and idealist, and fundamentalists, all in the same throw. It's quite a remarkable contradiction in terms. Wouldn't you agree, my dear sailors and star nuts? So, guilty. Disney is guilty. So anyhow, yes, there you have it. Tom says, peeks up through the lower decks. Hail, Tom. You may resume your post, sir. Resume your post. Fu Man Blue says, Tom's awake. Come on up, mate. Wrangler says, they did try that with Q-Force and failed miserably. I mean, yeah, Netflix is a whole other kettle of fish when you think about it, because it's like Netflix is this behemoth model of, in theory, by the way, I've watched like one episode of that Q-Force. My God, was that a horrific show? That was just, oh God, that is torture. That is a crime against humanity, that show. It was so, it's just, Yeah. Anyway, now, in theory, Netflix could benefit from a similar model, which is just make something for everyone. The problem is Netflix doesn't make something for everyone. They used to, but they don't anymore. All they do is make woke content. That's all they do. And this is why I say they're fundamentalists, because fundamentalists are also into the proselytization business. In other words, they are out to convert people or remove enemies. Those are your two options when you're a fundamentalist. You're going to convert or eliminate your enemies. And so what they are trying, what they proceed from is the premise that, I mean, this is what DEI comes from, right? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Diversity, equity, inclusion does not say there should be something for everyone, because that concept I agree with. But that is not what they say. What they say is the problem is if something exists that only makes white people happy, there's something wrong. That's the point. You know, a film like 1917, which is about a World War I soldier on the English lines having to carry a message to save his brother's unit from annihilation. The fact that it's mostly, ostensibly, I'm just taking the position of their narrative. It's mostly a story that only white people care about. It's only about a white historical event, and it only features white actors. Well, that's a problem. Right. So they don't have the attitude that there should be something for everyone. Rather, they have the attitude that they need to take their worldview and their beliefs and force it, cram it down the throats of every single property, every single audience, every single individual who either doesn't want it, doesn't believe in it, or doesn't care about it. Cram it down their throats until they bend the knee. And therefore, all content must be woke content. All of it. Everything. 100%. Why do you think they're coming after Warhammer 40,000? Seriously. I said this on the last stream. You have got to have a work ethic to discover that the Imperium of Man is a dystopian, toxic, masculine hell. Like, you have got to be deadly determined to seek that, to ferret that out. Warhammer is as below the radar as about any nerd subculture could possibly be. And they sniffed it out, folks. They sniffed it out. They are not happy to make, they could very well make their own woke tabletop game. They could do that. They could make a woke tabletop game. I don't know how there would be conflict in it, but whatever. And it could be about killing the oppressive, the oppressive whiteys. Putting down the patriarchy or something. That's what they could do. Patriarchy games, they could call it. And it would be about an army of strong female career women who unite to put down an oppressive patriarchy, a la The Handmaid's Tale. And yet they could make The Handmaid's Tale tabletop game. I don't know how that could possibly be entertaining, but they could do it. And that would be fine. And we could say, yeah, you've got your Handmaid's Tale tabletop, and I've got my Warhammer 40,000. The world is equal. We're all happy. Everybody gets what they want. That's a win-win. That would be win-win. They don't want a win-win. They want win, lose badly. They want win, annihilation. That's the game they're playing. And so it is not acceptable to them that there exists a Warhammer 40,000. So circling back to my original point, this is why Q-Force on Netflix and things like that fail, because it's saturated. They've already saturated everything on that platform with this shit. All of it is saturated with this shit. So there is no differentiation, and it's why they're failing, because they didn't create something for everyone, which is why we now are creating the Iron Age of entertainment. And we march on. We march on, my dear sailors and star nuts. So anyhow, but Chris Gore's other point too is that, look, aside from the whole branding issue, you just have to know your audience and scale the project for the audience. If it's an indie film, it should be made on an indie budget. And it should, Sound of Freedom, if Sound of Freedom had a $100 million budget, it would be a failure. It would be a failure right now. But of course, it didn't. It had a $14 million budget. And it's, what is the Sound of Freedom box office sitting at right now? Sound of Freedom box office. I haven't even checked in on that. Sound of Freedom box office total. It's at 153 million, folks. What is that? That is is that right? Yes. Divided by that is a 10, basically more than a 10 times, easily more than a 10 times return on their budget. That's incredible. Now, that would not be possible if they had not properly scaled the project, right? And so this is really Chris Gore's point, is that they are very arrogantly saying, well, everybody should like gay people. And if not everybody wants to see boyfriends kissing, if not everybody wants to see Splinter kissing his boyfriend, well, that's their problem. So we're going to spend $500 million and we're going to make $1.5 billion, or else the world is unfair. And it's like, well, that's why they're failing. It's like, there is a market for, Splinter, I guess. Newsflash, though, Splinter was actually a girl, I guess. I mean, who cares? Like, who cares? Why is Splinter kissing anyone? That's not a thing that should be in this movie. But, anyway. So that's my point. That is the point. Tom says, sparkle. What else we got? Hail the Iron Age, says Wrangler. Hail. All right, everybody. Well, my dear sailors and Starnuts, thank you for joining me on this Sunday Captain's Cast on the Swords and Starships channel. I am your host, Captain Garrett. Please do like and subscribe. We were streaming today on YouTube, Rumble, and Twitter or X or whatever the hell Elon wants to call it. As soon as he lets me know, I will start calling it that, I guess. And I appreciate it. And never forget, my dear sailors and Starnauts, what the Marvel Cinematic Universe has become. Yes, the Samuel L. Jackson as the... What the? Oh my God, how did we get here? How the hell did we get here? I sometimes I can't even believe it. I'm just like... anyway. Well, there you have it. So, Fu Man Blue, great show, Captain. Well, thank you, Fu Man Blue. Thank you for the super chat. Regular, thank you for the super chat. Thank you for the support. Everyone lurking, everyone who popped by, just listening on the restream, whoever you are, wherever you are welcome on this crew. Whether you agree with the captain or you think he's off his nut, you're welcome here, my dear sailors and Starnuts. We are nerds, and we're better together. Better together. Fu Man Blue says, damn, was about to be such a nice outro. I know, I screwed it up. You know what? I'm new at this, okay? Your captain is learning. How about this for an outro?
One thing before I get off this. The mother who said we're going to keep this thing going until people start losing their houses and their apartments. Listen to me, mother. There's a lot of ways to lose your house. Some of it is financial. Some of it is karma. And some of it is just figuring out who the said that. And we know who said that. And where he lives. There's a lot of ways to lose your house. You wish that on people. You wish that families starve while you're making 20